Chapter 820. Ning Can's expression actually remained unchanged when he saw his personal disciple being ridiculed like this, and it was as if he utterly didn't hear those unpleasant words. Of course, the reason he was able to be so composed was because he'd long since found out from Zishang that Duanling Tian was able to counter him. Zishang naturally didn't say that the Devil Seal tablet in Duanling Tian's possession could counter him, and he instead unified the statement that he'd mentioned to Feng Wei that day. He said that Duanling Tian was a variant like him, and it just happened to counter his innate ability. No matter what, Zishang had admitted defeat. On the other hand, Duanling Tian had obtained victory in his first battle. Duanling Tian returned to the side of Feng Tianwu and the others and looked at Sword 13 at the first possible moment, and he couldn't help but ask via voice transmission. "Senior, who exactly are those three monks in that paean? Why have they come to Skywolf Fort?" Duanling Tian was extremely puzzled by this. "They've come to Skywolf Fort for the sake of all of you." Sword 13's voice transmission entered into Duanling Tian's ears, and he replied to Duanling Tian's question. "For the sake of us?" Duanling Tian had a puzzled expression, and he completely didn't know what Sword 13 meant by this. Sword 13 continued. "There's no need to conceal some things now. Do you know why Skywolf Fort is holding this martial competition of the 10 dynasties?" "For what?" Duanling Tian shook his head as he naturally didn't know. Of course, even though he didn't know, but he subconsciously felt that something was off. Because in the history of the Darkhan dynasty, there hadn't been a grand event like the martial competition of the 10 dynasties that had occurred in the past. Moreover, it was a grand event that a power of the foreign lands like Skywolf Fort had personally held for the young geniuses of the 10 dynasties, and it was even more strange. Duanling Tian naturally didn't believe that Skywolf Fort didn't have any ulterior motives. After all, Skywolf Fort had promised numerous rewards for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, and this was the reason why the 10 dynasties were scrambling for it like a flock of ducks. Otherwise, the 10 dynasties wouldn't even bother with Skywolf Fort. At the beginning, Duanling Tian had thought that perhaps Skywolf Fort intended to recruit disciples through the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. But on second thought, something didn't seem right. Even if the Skywolf Fort wanted to recruit disciples, there seemed to be no need to hold the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. They could totally send people to the 10 great dynasties and spread the news. At that time, so long as it was a comparatively outstanding young genius in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, they would surely be interested. In that case, the Skywolf Fort wouldn't need to pay any remuneration to the 10 dynasties. Although the small amount of compensation that Skywolf Fort paid to the 10 dynasties was nothing to Skywolf Fort, it was still meat no matter how small a mosquito was. Everyone understood the principle of saving as much as possible. Since the Skywolf Fort was willing to not hesitate to pay a reward that could be considered to be generous to the 10 dynasties for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, then it would surely not make a losing deal. Of course, all of this was Duanling Tian's own guess. In next to no time, Duanling Tian knew that his guess wasn't wrong. Skywolf Fort held the martial competition of the 10 dynasties for the sake of selecting outstanding young martial artists from the 10 dynasties. These young martial artists will bring great benefits to Skywolf Fort. As for the exact benefits, it's not convenient for me to tell you now, but you'll know very soon. Sword 13 spoke to Duanling Tian. Duanling Tian came to a sudden understanding and then he asked, "So in this way, Senior, you came here for the sake of getting a share of the benefits from Skywolf Fort and want to take away half of the outstanding young martial artists?" "Exactly." Sword 13 nodded. At this time there was nothing to conceal. Even if it's the Empyrean Temple's Baldi Hui Ming and the emotion-severing sect's Payan, they've come here for the sake of all of you outstanding young martial artists. Originally, I intended to join forces with Skywolf Fort and make the Empyrean Temple's Baldi retreat in the face of difficulties. But unexpectedly, they actually found the members of the emotion-severing sect. As he finished speaking, Sword 13 was slightly helpless. Through Sword 13's explanation, Duanling Tian was temporarily able to sort out the sequence of events that had occurred. Because of certain reasons, no matter if it was Skywolf Fort, the Blade Sect, or even the Empyrean Temple and Emotion-Severing Sect, all of them wanted to find a group of outstanding young martial artists. For the sake of finding outstanding young martial artists, Skywolf Fort held the martial competition of the 10 dynasties because doing this would allow them to achieve their goal in the most efficient manner. Senior, if I'm not wrong, the reason all of you sects want to find outstanding young martial artists is probably because you want us to enter a certain place and seek benefits for all of you? That place ought to have an inscription formation set up there that prohibits martial artists above the age of 40 from entering. Is it like this? A flash of inspiration flashed in Duan Lingtian's mind as he faintly guessed some things, and he asked Sword 13 via voice transmission. All of this was his guess after combining the requirements of Skywolf Fort to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. He still remembered that before the martial competition of the 10 dynasties began a few days ago, the first young genius that was measured to be 40 years old by the age-measuring pearl was killed by Feng Wei in rage. Obviously, Skywolf Fort attached great importance to the age of the young geniuses that participated in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. How did you know? Sword 13 went pale with shock when he heard Duan Lingtian's guess. I guessed. Duan Lingtian smiled and then he said, besides that, I'm also able to guess that the place all of you sects intend to send outstanding young martial artists to is probably left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu. Sword 13 was completely speechless. He knew that Duan Lingtian's natural talent and comprehension ability in the martial Tao were heaven-defying, yet never had he imagined that Duan Lingtian's thoughts were actually so meticulous, and he was able to associate so many things through some small clues. Exactly. The place their Blade sect wanted to send outstanding young martial artists to was precisely left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu. Moreover, that place did indeed have an age restriction towards the people that entered. Martial artists that had reached the age of 40 would die without a doubt if they entered. When he saw Sword 13 stunned, Duan Lingtian knew that his guess wasn't wrong. A place left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu and an inscription formation like that? There's surely many good things within it. I truly never imagined that the reason Skywolf Fort held the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was for this. Duan Lingtian sighed and at the same time he was faintly excited in his heart. Perhaps before he obtained the great treasure left behind by Emperor Wu of Samsara, he would be able to obtain a windfall, and presumably that place would have many good things. Otherwise, why would the powers of the foreign lands like Skywolf Fort, Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion-Severing Sect flock to it like a flock of ducks? After all, no one was stupid and no one would do something that was strenuous and thankless. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's gaze descended onto the central area in the sky above the combat arena, and Zishang, who'd admitted defeat after being challenged by him earlier, was standing there. After Zishang entered the arena, his gaze had descended onto Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. Precisely speaking, it descended onto Feng Tianwu. Duan Lingtian's face sank when he saw this, and cold lights flickered within his eyes. This Zishang actually really wants to go against Tianwu. I challenge the possessor of the number 7 token, Feng Tianwu. Zishang spoke out and directly challenged Feng Tianwu. Feng Tianwu flew out to stand in confrontation with Zishang, and her beautiful face was filled with a calm expression. Whoosh! Instantly the scene was in an uproar. Zishang admitted defeat before Duan Lingtian earlier, yet he actually wants to challenge Feng Tianwu now. Could it be that he thinks Feng Tianwu is inferior to Duan Lingtian? The strength that Duan Lingtian has revealed now seems to be far inferior to Feng Tianwu, right? Up until now, Duan Lingtian has revealed a cultivation at the second level of the void interpretation stage and his second level intermediate wind concept. On the other hand, not only has Feng Tianwu revealed a cultivation at the second level of the void interpretation stage, she's even revealed her fourth level intermediate fire concept. Zishang, Duan Lingtian, and Feng Tianwu are all members of the Darkhan dynasty. Logically speaking, he ought to know who's stronger between Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu. Since he chose Feng Tianwu, I presume he knows that Feng Tianwu's strength is weaker than Duan Lingtian. It ought to be like this. The representatives and young geniuses of the various dynasties discussed animatedly, and the sky above the combat arena seemed to have become a bustling market. Second level of the void interpretation stage? Fourth level fire concept? No matter if it was the 3 monks from the Empyrean Temple or the emotion-severing sects Pei En and Zhang Yin, all of them looked at Feng Tianwu with surprised expressions when they heard the discussions in the surroundings. This young woman looked to be a little over 20 at most. Not only is she a second-level void interpretation stage martial artist, she's even comprehended 4th level fire concept? Vice Fort Master Ning, how old is this little girl? Hui Ming looked at Ning Can and asked curiously. Ning Can grunted coldly. 25. 25? As soon as Ning Can finished speaking, it wasn't just Hui Ming, Hui Jing, and the young monk behind them. Even Pei En and Zhang Yin were greatly shocked. Of course, even though Pei En and Zhang Yin were shocked, they didn't reveal it on their faces, and only a trace of astonishment flashed past their eyes. The members of the emotion-severing sect were emotionless, and even if the world was turned upside down, their expressions would still be composed as before. A wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of Zishang's mouth as he looked at Feng Qianwu. Originally, there was no enmity between him and Feng Qianwu, but because Feng Qianwu and Duan Lingtian were close, he'd taken Feng Qianwu to be his enemy in his heart. Now, his master had ordered him to kill Feng Qianwu, so he went with the flow and intended to kill Feng Qianwu. "Unleash your secret technique," said the old man. Feng Qianwu stood in confrontation with Zishang as she spoke indifferently. "Secret technique?" As soon as Feng Qianwu spoke, it caused the surrounding spectators to be stunned. Looks like Zishang has really concealed his strength. Many people recovered from their shock and sighed with emotion. Right when numerous gazes descended onto Zishang, Zishang sneered. "As you wish." Instantly, a small black dot appeared between Zishang's brows, and it was clearly exposed under the gazes of everyone present. Subsequently, the small black dot ceaselessly enlarged. In the end, it transformed into a black-colored flame brand. The scene before them caused the surrounding spectators to be stunned, and they completely didn't know what had happened. The changes on Zishang's body were too strange when it entered into their eyes. Chapter 821. Obviously, the sensitive Pei-en had noticed the slight change in the aura on Zishang's body. If Pei-en knew that the remnant soul of a powerhouse suspected to be Emperor Wu was hiding in Zishang's body, and that the remnant soul could temporarily attach itself to his body, allowing him to possess a strength that was 4 levels higher than usual, perhaps he would not be confused. As the origin energy on Zishang's body surged, the heaven and earth energy above his head stirred and finally gathered into the heaven and earth phenomenon. 80 ancient horned dragon silhouettes. Is this really the heaven and earth phenomenon caused by Zishang's origin energy? Many people exclaimed in surprise when they saw the 80 ancient horned dragon silhouettes above Zishang's head. Using just his origin energy to mobilize the heaven and earth energy to form 80 ancient horned dragon silhouettes. This was the symbol of a 6th-level void interpretation martial artist. I can't believe that Zishang is actually a 6th-level void interpretation martial artist. Earlier, Feng Qianwu asked him to cast some sort of secret technique. Subsequently, a strand of black flame mark appeared between Zishang's brows, and then he revealed his cultivation base at the 6th-level void interpretation. Could it be that he cast the secret technique to possess such a cultivation base? It should be. However, this secret technique is really freakish. It actually allowed a 2nd-level void interpretation martial artist to possess the strength of a 6th-level void interpretation martial artist in an instant. The surrounding crowd was shocked by Zishang's secret technique. Secret technique? At this moment, even the 3 monks from the Empyrean Temple were shocked by Zishang's transformation. Zishang's cultivation base is actually on par with mine after he cast the secret technique? Zhang Yan stared at Zishang with a slightly solemn expression on his face. After joining the emotion-severing sect and possessing his current cultivation base, he had recalled his past more than once. Of course, it was not his wishful love that he could not bear to look back on. Instead, it was his memories of the various people he had come into contact with. Among them, he and the other 4 of the 5 great young masters of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom left the deepest impression on him, followed by Duan Lingtian. In his opinion, with his current cultivation, whether it was the other 4 of the 5 young masters or Duan Lingtian, he was destined to leave them far behind. However, now that he saw Zishang reveal a cultivation base at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage, he finally realized that he was too arrogant. Ghost Elder, kill her. At the same time, an anxious voice resounded in Zishang's body. It was Zishang's voice. Presently, Zishang was being controlled by the remnant soul of the ghost flame. Just as Guihua controlled Decease and was about to kill Feng Tianwu, his figure that was about to shoot out suddenly froze on the spot. His pair of lusterless eyes were instantly filled with a trace of fear. All of this was because he saw Feng Qianwu unhurriedly take out a broken stone tablet. That stone tablet was currently trembling slightly, as if it had sensed something. Damn it! Why is the Devil Seal tombstone in her hands? Subsequently, a ghastly and aged voice resounded ceaselessly in Zishang's body. Zishang, go play with her yourself. Admit defeat if you can't win. That Duan Lingtian actually gave the Devil Seal tombstone to her. Damn it. In the next moment, the black-colored flame brand between Zishang's brows vanished completely. Zishang's soul returned to his body. Elder brother Duan really thought it through thoroughly. A wisp of a light smile appeared on Feng Tianwu's beautiful face when she saw this scene. The Devil Seal tombstone in her hand was given to her by Duan Lingtian last night, and he asked her to use it to scare Zishang once the black-colored flame brand appeared between Zishang's brows. At that time, Zishang would admit defeat. I admit defeat. Zishang's oppressive and bitter voice sounded out, and it was like a rock shattering the heavens, causing everyone that was anticipating him to make a move to be dumbstruck. Admit defeat? Why did he admit defeat? This was the confusion and bewilderment in the hearts of most people. After Zishang revealed a cultivation at the 6th level of the Void Interpretation stage, besides Duan Lingtian, practically everyone else thought that Feng Tianwu would admit defeat, and even if she didn't admit defeat, she would still be defeated by Zishang. However, reality played an enormous joke on them. After Zishang revealed a cultivation at the 6th level of the Void Interpretation stage, he came menacingly a moment ago, yet he was completely terrified in the next moment, and he even admitted defeat directly. What's this Zishang doing? If he wanted to admit defeat, couldn't he have done so earlier? Why did he only admit defeat after executing his secret technique? Isn't this a waste of my fucking time? Why did Vice Fort Master Ning take such a trash disciple? He's too useless. He possesses a cultivation at the 6th level of the Void Interpretation stage, yet he doesn't dare make a move against Feng Tianwu. The clamorous noise in the surroundings was one-sided, and all of them were denouncing Zishang. Zishang. At the same time, Ning Can, who was in the sky above the combat arena, had a completely gloomy expression, and his furious voice transmission pierced into Zishang's ears. What the hell are you doing? Didn't I tell you that you must kill this Feng Tianwu? Master, I'm unable to kill Feng Tianwu because of some things. It's temporarily inconvenient for me to say, but I guarantee that I'll surely give you an answer. Zishang, who was prepared since long ago, replied when he heard Ning Can's voice transmission. I hope you do as you say. Otherwise, even if you're my personal disciple, I'll still punish you heavily. Ning Can's expression eased up slightly when he heard this, yet he still warned Zishang. Don't worry, master. Zishang replied, and then he stared coldly at Feng Tianwu as he said via voice transmission. Feng Tianwu, I truly never imagined that Duan Lingtian would give that thing to you. If it's possible, I hope you can transfer it to me and I can agree to any request of yours. It's even to the extent that I can use the 8th level fire concept fragment my master bestowed to me in exchange for it, so long as you're willing to give me the broken stone tablet you put away earlier. Zishang's words were filled with temptation. But unfortunately, Feng Tianwu utterly didn't fall for this trick of his. Dream on. Instantly, Zishang's face was livid, yet he couldn't do anything to Feng Tianwu. Without the assistance of Elder Ghost, he was utterly not a match for Feng Tianwu, who'd comprehended 4th level intermediate fire concept. Zishang challenged Feng Tianwu and admitted defeat. Both of them exchanged command tokens. The possessor of the number 2 token became Feng Tianwu. The possessor of the number 7 token became Zishang. After Feng Tianwu obtained the number 2 token, she returned to Duan Lingtian's side and returned the Devil Seal tablet to Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. At the same time, she asked with surprise, Elder Brother Duan, what exactly is this broken stone tablet? Zishang actually wants to use an 8th level fire concept fragment to exchange for it with me. 8th level fire concept fragment? His wishful thinking is really great. Duan Lingtian looked at the distant Zishang and laughed with ridicule when he heard this, and then he said via voice transmission, Tianwu, I don't know exactly what this thing is, but you just have to remember one thing. Even if you give me 109th level fire concept fragments, I still won't exchange for this stone tablet. Not to mention a mere 8th level concept of fire fragment. It's so precious? Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was covered in astonishment when she heard this. Even though Duan Lingtian didn't clearly state what the broken stone tablet was and what value it had, but what Duan Lingtian said earlier allowed her to realize that the broken stone tablet wasn't simple. Kid Lingtian, thank you. Feng Wudao clearly saw the small movements between Duan Lingtian and Feng Tianwu, so he naturally guessed the reason Duan Lingtian admitted defeat, and he couldn't help but thank Duan Lingtian. Uncle Feng, we're all on the same side, so you don't have to be so courteous. Not to mention this was only a slight effort. Duan Lingtian shook his head and smiled. Yes, we're on the same side. Feng Wudao laughed freely, and then he looked at Duan Lingtian before looking at his daughter, and he revealed an ambiguous smile. Duan Lingtian directly disregarded this. On the other hand, Feng Tianwu was embarrassed to the point her beautiful face flushed red, and it seemed as if blood would drip out from it. Imperial Uncle, did you see that? The Dark Han Dynasty's emperor spoke with a serious expression. Yes. Bai Nanyin nodded and said with a fearful expression, "The reason Zishang admitted defeat was because Feng Qianwu withdrew that broken stone tablet, and it's the saint weapon that Zishang said can provide an amplification of strength. I'm not sure if this broken stone tablet is a saint weapon or if it's capable of providing an amplification of strength. But I discerned that Zishang is extremely afraid of it. During the dynasty martial competition that day, Zishang lost after Duan Lingtian withdrew this stone tablet. Earlier, when Duan Lingtian challenged Zishang, Zishang directly admitted defeat. I presume it's because he's afraid of that stone tablet. Besides that, when he faced Feng Qianwu, he was originally prepared to make a move, yet when Feng Qianwu withdrew that stone tablet, he directly admitted defeat." The Darkhan dynasty's emperor nodded. "Perhaps, since the beginning, Zishang had the intention of utilizing our Darkhan dynasty's imperial family to help him seize that stone tablet. But unfortunately, Big Brother has gone missing because of that stone tablet, and it's extremely likely that he's already been killed." Bai Nanyin sighed, and his gaze was extremely complicated. In the sky above the combat arena, endless discussions arose. Practically every single person was denouncing Zishang. Then why did Zishang suddenly admit defeat? Zhang Yan frowned, and then he looked at the nearby Payan. "Master, have you noticed something?" Payan shook his head. The three monks from the Empyrean Temple had bewildered expressions now, and they were unable to wrap their heads around Zishang's actions of admitting defeat. The discussions of the surrounding spectators gradually stopped when the possessor of the number 3 token, Qi Feng, ascended the arena. After Qi Feng ascended the arena, his gaze locked onto a graceful and beautiful figure. The possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling. Yi Ling, the strongest expert in the younger generation of the Darqing dynasty. Her cultivation was at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage, and she'd comprehended 2nd level void interpretation concept, causing her strength to be extraordinary. But unfortunately, she was bound to lose when encountering Qi Feng. Qi Feng, the Darqi dynasty's 9th prince, revealed a cultivation at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage and 4th level void interpretation concept as soon as he made a move, and he domineeringly crushed Yi Ling. Before him, Yi Ling didn't have the slightest strength to fight back and lost in a single move. Fortunately, Qi Feng showed mercy and didn't ruthlessly destroy a beauty, otherwise even if Yi Ling had 10 lives, it wouldn't be enough to survive. If I don't utilize my soul skill, I'm not a match for Qi Feng. Chapter 822. After Qi Feng, it was the possessor of the number 4 token, Qin Kong, that ascended the arena. After Qin Kong ascended the arena, his gaze locked onto the possessor of the number 10 token, Su Li. Su Li's cultivation was at the 2nd level of the void interpretation stage, and he'd comprehended 3rd level intermediate sword concept and 1st level intermediate water concept. Coupled with a grade 3 spirit sword, he possessed the strength of 110 ancient horned dragons. Qin Kong was a 4th level void interpretation stage martial artist that had comprehended 4th level void interpretation stage concept. Not to mention he was using a grade 3 spirit weapon. Even if he was only using a grade 4 or grade 5 spirit weapon, he would still be able to crush Su Li in strength. Under the circumstances that the difference in strength was so great, Su Li didn't make a move and directly admitted defeat. The possessor of the number 5 token, Ta Mu, was from the Daryuan dynasty, and his figure was robust like an ox. The grade 3 spirit weapon in his hand was a pair of gloves, and his iron fists struck out like cannonballs. Those that were struck by his fists didn't die but were heavily injured to the point of being on the verge of death. The possessor of the number 10 token, Su Li. Just like Qin Kong, Ta Mu challenged Su Li. Su Li admitted defeat without ascending the arena earlier, so he couldn't refuse Ta Mu's challenge. But just like the previous battle, he still directly admitted defeat. Even though the concept Ta Mu had comprehended was slightly inferior to Qi Feng and Qin Kong, it was still a 3rd level void interpretation stage concept. And coupled with his cultivation at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage, Su Li was far from being a match for him. It was precisely because of this that Su Li admitted defeat decisively and didn't waste any time. After Ta Mu, it was the possessor of the number 6 token, Lu Yong, that ascended the arena. After Lu Yong ascended the arena, his gaze flashed past Zishang, O Chen, Yi Ling and Su Li. He could only choose these 4 people. Su Li. In the end he chose Su Li. Su Li was challenged for the 3rd time. "Ah, Su Li, this number 10 token of yours is really a hot potato." Zhang Shouyong looked at Su Li and couldn't help but laugh. Even though Duan Lingtian didn't say anything, The smile that suffused his face was sufficient to show that he was slightly taking pleasure in Su Li's misfortune, just like Zhang Shou-yong. Su Li laughed bitterly, yet he didn't admit defeat this time and directly ascended the arena to confront Lu Yong. Lu Yong was the Darming dynasty's crown prince and the personal disciple of the vice fort master of Skywolf Fort, Feng Wei. His cultivation was at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage and had comprehended 2nd level fire concept. Besides that, Lu Yong had comprehended 5th level elementary wind concept and 3rd level elementary lightning concept. Lu Yong's spirit weapon was a grade 3 spirit fan that didn't have a fan face and only had a fan frame. When he unleashed all his techniques, his strength was equivalent to the strength of 105 ancient horned dragons. Compared to Su Li's strength of 110 ancient horned dragons, his strength was 5 ancient horned dragons less. Something seems to be off. Logically speaking, this Lu Yong's strength is inferior to Su Li, and he ought to be fearful. But now he... Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Lu Yong, who was filled with confidence. He faintly felt that something was amiss. Under the gazes of everyone present, Lu Yong made a move. As soon as he made a move, he struck first to gain the initiative and utilized all his ability, causing the grade 3 spirit fan in his hand to transform into a flaming fan that emitted an extremely hot aura. For a time, the airflow in the air shook, and when it was touched by the flaming fan in Lu Yong's hand, it gave rise to a wave of heat that spread out in all directions and blew towards all the surrounding spectators. Duan Lingtian only felt a dense and hot aura assault his face, and he instantly noticed the change in the fire concept within Lu Yong's fan compared to before, causing his face to be unable to refrain from going grim. Su Li, watch out. He's already comprehended 3rd level intermediate fire concept. Duan Lingtian hurriedly sent a voice transmission to warn Su Li. Meanwhile, the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth abruptly appeared in the sky above Lu Yong, who was completely coiled by flames and seemed to have transformed into a large fireball that charged towards Su Li. 115 lifelike ancient horned dragon silhouettes condensed into form. Swish. After being warned by Duan Lingtian, Su Li, who was prepared, fused into the enormous sword formed from material water concept along with his sword when faced with Lu Yong, who was rolling over like a large fireball, and then he soared through the sky. An ear-piercing sword howl sounded out as a fierce sword concept was emitted, and it caused many people that were comparatively nearby to feel a chill run down their spines. It's useless. The difference of the strength of 5 ancient horned dragons is sufficient for me to easily crush you. The rolling large fireball was like a cannonball that shot towards the enormous sword. At the same time, Lu Yong's sonorous voice sounded out. Is that so? Su Li's voice was without the slightest fear, and the enormous sword he'd formed along with water concept and sword concept abruptly charged into the sky as soon as he finished speaking. You can't escape. Lu Yong's cold snort sounded out as the large fireball that emitted waves of heat charged into the sky and chased after Su Li, and it seemed as if it wouldn't stop until it caught up to Su Li. Swish. The enormous sword charged into the sky, yet the large fireball behind it grew closer and closer. The difference of the strength of 5 ancient horned dragons caused the speed of the enormous sword to be slightly slower than the large fireball. What does Su Li want to do? Zhang Shou-yong had a bewildered expression when he saw this scene, and he was utterly unable to guess Su Li's intentions in doing this. As far as he was concerned, Su Li's actions now was undoubtedly completely exposing himself before Lu Yong, and he might face danger at any moment. Duan Lingtian frowned as well. He kept having the feeling that it was impossible for Su Li to make such a low-level mistake. Could it be that this fellow Su Li still has some trump card? Suddenly, Duan Lingtian glanced at Sword 13, and this thought arose in his heart when he noticed Sword 13's composed expression. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian's gaze lit up as he stared fixedly at the enormous sword that was ceaselessly being pressed closer by the large fireball. Perhaps Su Li would really be able to give him a pleasant surprise. Swish. The enormous sword continued charging up, whereas the large fireball grew closer and closer to it. Suddenly, a wave of ear-piercing rumbling sounded out, and it caused everyone to be unable to refrain from looking over. At the place the sound sounded out, the airflow in the air flashed, and it seemed to have formed circle after circle of ripples that ceaselessly spread out in all directions, causing it to be extremely gorgeous. But now no one noticed this, and the gazes of everyone had descended onto the enormous sword that suddenly turned around. The enormous sword turned around, and the tip of the sword pointed towards the large fireball that charged up. Swish. Suddenly, everyone saw the enormous sword suddenly tremble before swiftly descending, and it actually pierced straight towards the large fireball that charged towards it. The enormous sword descended from the sky, and it carried the strength of 110 ancient horned dragons along with it. The large fireball soared into the sky, and it contained the strength of 115 ancient horned dragons. The two of them were about to collide, and if nothing unexpected happened, the outcome would be revealed immediately. Su Li is about to lose. This was the thought in the hearts of most people present. After all, the difference of the strength of 5 ancient horned dragons was like a chasm that was impossible to surmount. Swish, swoosh. Finally, the enormous sword and the large fireball collided with a bang, and the collision caused intense and dazzling sparks that were like numerous flames that had condensed into form. Under the gazes of everyone present, the enormous sword that was formed from material water concept collided with the large fireball, and because of the gap in the level of concept, the concept of water restraining fire was unable to be realized. In the blink of an eye, the large fireball remained unchanged, yet the enormous sword was weakened to the point of shrinking by a portion. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, and the enormous sword seemed to have given up resisting, whereas, the strength of the large fireball became even stronger as it fiercely smashed onto the enormous sword, and it smashed the enormous sword into pieces. Right when everyone thought that Lu Yong who controlled the large fireball had defeated Su Li who controlled the enormous sword. Impossible! An exclaim of shock sounded out abruptly, and it was filled with disbelief. It's Lu Yong's voice. Instantly, everyone couldn't help but stare over, and with a single glance, they saw that when the enormous sword shattered, Su Li who was within it held the sword with both hands as he continued descending. At this instant, Su Li transferred all his strength to the sword in his hand, and the 110 ancient horned dragon silhouettes that had gradually dispersed from the enormous sword shattering earlier condensed once more. Swish! The 3-foot-long blade descended directly, and when the energy of the large fireball was completely exhausted on the enormous sword, it penetrated through the large fireball that was in a weak state before descending towards Lu Yong's head. Stop! Feng Wei's face went grim when he saw this, and he shouted out explosively with the intention of making a move to rescue Lu Yong, his personal disciple. But unfortunately it was too late. Swish! Su Li descended from the sky with his sword, and the sharp 3-foot-long blade followed along Lu Yong's head and stabbed into his body. As soon as Lu Yong died, the large fireball dispersed along with him and transformed into nothingness. After pulling out his sword, Su Li who wore tattered clothes and had blood on the corners of his mouth revealed a smile. So what if there was a difference of 5 ancient horned dragons? Su Li would still annihilate Lu Yong beneath his sword. Su Li! Feng Wei shouted out coldly as the clothes on his body inflated, and he wanted to take revenge for his personal disciple, Lu Yong. But unfortunately he hadn't made a move when he was stopped by Ning. Can Feng Wei calm down? Don't forget that the ranking selections of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties is a matter of life and death. As the vice fort master of Skywolf Fort, if you make a move for your own benefit, then where would you place the Skywolf Fort? As he finished speaking, Ning Kan's tone became even more stern. Feng Wei calmed down when he heard this, but ghastly hatred still arose in his eyes as he stared fixedly at Su Li. So long as he had the slightest chance in the future, he would absolutely not let Su Li off, even if Su Li was Sword 13's personal disciple. Even though Lu Yong couldn't be considered to be at the top in terms of natural talent and comprehension ability amongst the group of young geniuses that were participating in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, because Lu Yong's character was to his liking, he'd always been extremely satisfied with this personal disciple of his. But now, his personal disciple had been killed right before his eyes, so how could he not be enraged? As expected of the extremely renowned heaven-rank sword skill of the Blade Sect, the Childmother Chainsword, it's really extraordinary. Hui Ming's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but praise. The other middle-aged monk that stood by Hui Ming's side, Hui Jing, focused his eyes as he looked at Sword 13. Vice Sect Master Sword, could it be that this young man is your disciple? Baldy Hui Jing, even though your strength isn't much, needless to say, your judgment isn't bad. Sword 13 nodded. Hui Jing laughed bitterly. He was an 8th level void transformation stage martial artist at any rate, yet when it entered Sword 13's mouth, it had instead become a strength that wasn't much. Of course, he knew clearly in his heart that Sword 13 had the qualifications to say this. According to his knowledge, Sword 13 had already broken through to the 9th level of the void transformation stage now, and it was far from something he could compare to. Chapter 823. Mother-Child Chain Sword? As he looked at Su Li, who'd become the center of attention after killing Lu Yong, Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. Earlier, when Su Li abandoned the enormous sword and the enormous sword was blasted into pieces by Lu Yong, Duan Lingtian had seen Su Li's movements that were like a bolt of lightning. After abandoning the enormous sword, Su Li used his body to control the chain sword at the first possible moment and killed Lu Yong, who didn't have the time to react. Lu Yong had a strength that was stronger than Su Li, yet a single mistake caused him to perish. It was lamentable. Even though the mother-child chainsword Su Li cultivates is only a low-grade heaven-rank sword skill, but his actions from before have obviously already been cultivated to the mastery stage. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. Su Li was really a natural sword cultivator. Good. Amazing. Meanwhile, the surrounding spectators that were shocked by Su Li's actions recovered from their shock and couldn't help but exclaim loudly. As far as they were concerned, the sword skill Su Li executed earlier was miraculous. So what if there was a difference of 5 ancient horned dragons? He'd still killed his opponent while being weak. Whoosh. Under the gazes of everyone present, Su Li flew down and arrived before Duan Lingtian in a short moment, and then he said with a smile, "Duan Lingdan, I've helped you take revenge. How will you repay me?" If it was another person, then out of consideration that the person was Feng Wei's personal disciple, Su Li might not kill the person. But Lu Yong had once made a move against Duan Lingtian in the illusory purgatory during the first round of the selections. According to Jianghu Yong, Duan Lingtian had almost died at the hands of Lu Yong. It was precisely because of this that he'd killed Lu Yong. Duan Lingtian was a friend he'd gotten to know since he was young, and Duan Lingtian had even generously lent him a hand when he needed help. In his heart, Duan Lingtian had an extremely special position. No matter who it was, anyone that wanted to kill Duan Lingtian was the enemy of Su Li. "What do you want in return?" Duan Lingtian asked with a smile. "Alright, I was just joking." Su Li shook his head and smiled. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes as a hint of gratitude appeared in his eyes. Actually, at the instant Su Li killed Lu Yong, he'd already guessed Su Li's motive for killing Lu Yong. It was to avenge him. Otherwise, Su Li was completely capable of heavily injuring Lu Yong, and there was no need to kill Lu Yong at all. Because killing Lu Yong was of no benefit to him, and it was even to the extent that he would offend the vice-fort master of Skywolf Fort, Feng Wei. This point could be seen from the hateful gaze Feng Wei shot at Su Li. Duan Lingtian didn't say any more words of gratitude because there was no need. His friendship with Su Li didn't require these superficial things. Nothing needed to be said. The possessor of the number 6 token, Lu Yong, has challenged the possessor of the number 10 token, Su Li, and failed. Su Li has obtained the number 6 token. Besides that, because of Lu Yong's death, the top 10 of the martial competition lacks a position, and it's filled by the possessor of the number 11 token. Ning Can announced loudly. The possessor of the number 11 token was precisely Jianghu Yong, and he'd obtained Su Li's number 10 token. As for Su Li, he'd obtained Lu Yong's number 6 token. "Su Li, looks like I have to thank you as well." Jianghu Yong originally thought that he had no fate with the top 10 of the martial competition, yet never had he imagined that things would take a turn and allow him to enter the top 10. In other words, even if he admitted defeat 9 times successively and lost to the possessors of the number 1 to 9 token, he would still be a person in the top 10 of the martial competition. Moreover, Jianghu Yong didn't intend to accept the challenge of anyone because he knew that there was a certain gap between him and the 9 people in front of him. Even if he made a move, he would only be asking for humiliation. It would be better to stand here and wait for the rewards for the top 10. The 4th round of the selections continued. The possessor of the number 7 token, Feng Tianwu, seemed to have transformed into a tinder elf that arrived at the central area of the sky above the combat arena in a short moment. Her gaze descended onto the possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling, at the first possible moment, and she challenged her by name. Yi Ling took a deep breath before flying out to meet Feng Tianwu's gaze. Now Yi Ling, who'd witnessed Feng Tianwu's true strength, didn't dare underestimate Feng Tianwu in the slightest. Even though Feng Tianwu's cultivation was inferior to her, her comprehension of concept far surpassed her. So when facing Feng Tianwu now, Yi Ling seemed as if she was facing a great enemy. The 2 young female experts stood in confrontation, and for a time, it drew the attention of everyone present. Yi Ling had been renowned in the Darqing dynasty for many years, and the people of the other dynasties had heard of her. Even though Feng Tianwu was beautiful like a celestial maiden and even possessed extraordinary strength, yet she was unknown before this. But after Feng Tianwu made a move earlier, no one dared question Feng Tianwu's strength. Everyone knew that this young woman that was beautiful like a celestial maiden didn't only possess a drop-dead gorgeous appearance, her strength far surpassed the numerous experts of the younger generation. She was only 25 years old, second-level void interpretation stage, and had comprehended fourth-level void interpretation concept. Not to mention a female martial artist. Even if it was a male martial artist, how many people were capable of accomplishing this? Ha! Yi Ling shouted out in a delicate voice and was the first to make a move. The sword in her hand was like a swimming dragon that was peerlessly graceful, and it flashed out like a flying leaf to lightly tap towards Feng Tianwu. In the surroundings of the sword, there seemed to be strands of jade-green ripples coiled and pulsated, and it was the material form of water concept. Swish! The sword strike was ordinary, yet it contained an extraordinary strength. In the sky, the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth condensed into form. 98 ancient horned dragon silhouettes soared down from the sky along with Yi Ling, who transformed into flying cotton, and they bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced towards Feng Tianwu. Swoosh! Feng Tianwu moved. She was swift like the wind and flashed like fire, and she moved to intercept Yi Ling in a short moment. Swish! The whip that was coiled with flames was like a swimming spirit serpent, and the serpent's tail swept out to fearlessly intercept the sharp sword in Yi Ling's hand. Whoosh! In the sky, the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth rose abruptly and transformed into 100 ancient horned dragon silhouettes, and it was an entire two more than the ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the sky above Yi Ling. The 100 ancient horned dragon silhouettes bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced towards the 98 ancient horned dragon silhouettes, and they fought together. For a time they were evenly matched. Clang! The Grade 3 Spirit Whip and Grade 3 Spirit Sword collided, and both of them shook before retreating at the same time. At the instant they retreated, both of them advanced side by side and charged towards each other. Swish! 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 For a time, the sword silhouettes and whip silhouettes that covered the sky crisscrossed past each other like waves of a violent storm, and the two beautiful figures were like fire and water as they ceaselessly collided with each other. In the end, it was still Feng Tianwu that gained the upper hand, and she injured Yi Ling in a spurt of energy to obtain the final victory. Yi Ling gasped for breath as she looked at the beautiful figure in the distance, and her gaze was as complicated as it could be. Could it be that this young woman that wore red clothes and was like a fire spirit is really the darling of the heavens? Not only did she possess a drop-dead gorgeous appearance that aroused envy in others, she also possessed a strength that shocked others. I originally thought that the Darqing dynasty's Yi Ling could be considered to be the #1 female expert in the younger generation of our 10 dynasties. But now it would seem that it isn't so. The Darkhan dynasty's Feng Tianwu is the true #1 female expert in the younger generation of our 10 dynasties. It's the first time I've seen a peerless beauty with such natural talent. The surrounding spectators sighed with emotion. O Qin, the possessor of the #8 token, stood in the distant sky, and he stared at Feng Tianwu with a gaze that was filled with fear and seriousness. Even though he felt that his strength surpassed Yi Ling, it wasn't by much. Once he faced Feng Tianwu, he didn't have complete confidence. It would be fine if it was another person, but this Feng Tianwu was only a young woman that was merely 25 years old, and his heart was filled with bitterness when such a young woman caused him to have such feelings. The fire spirit flashed through the sky and returned to Duan Lingtian's side. Could it be that the heavens are really jealous of outstanding geniuses? Sword 13 and Saber 5 looked at Feng Tianwu and sighed in their hearts. Feng Tianwu possessed the fire spirit body, and it caused them to feel pity. Of course, they knew as well that if it wasn't for Feng Tianwu possessing the fire spirit body, it would be impossible for her to possess such accomplishments at such an age. So that's how it is. In the sky, the sect leader of the emotion-severing sect, Peiyan, withdrew his gaze from Feng Tianwu and muttered to himself. Master, what did you notice? Zhang Yin stood by Peiyan's side and asked respectfully and reverently. If I'm not wrong, this Feng Tianwu ought to possess an innate spirit body. Peiyan muttered, and as he finished speaking, his gaze seemed to become slightly misty as if he was recalling something. Innate spirit body? Zhang Yan's pupils constricted as he said with astonishment. Could it be that she possesses an innate spirit body like senior brother Hong? Yes. Peiyan nodded lightly and said with an expressionless face, but your senior brother Hong is different from her. Your senior brother Hong possesses the lightning spirit body, whereas she ought to possess the fire spirit body. Even though Peiyan's face didn't reveal any joy or anger from the beginning until now, a trace of sorrow still flashed within his eyes when he spoke up to hear. So that's how it is. Zhang Yan couldn't help but gasp when he heard this, and then he sighed as he looked at the distant young woman that was like a fire spirit. Because of that, senior brother Hong, he knew a little about the fate of innate spirit bodies. It was said that before him, senior brother Hong was the only direct disciple that his master had taken in. However, he had never seen this senior brother Hong before. When he entered the emotion-severing sect, that senior brother Hong was already gone. It was said that when he was 30 years old, the lightning spirit body's energy that was hidden in his body erupted, causing him to die young. However, that senior brother Hong's innate talent and strength when he was still alive was enough to make him feel ashamed. It was said that in the entire history of the emotion-severing sect, no one could compare to senior brother Hong's innate talent. It could be said that it was unprecedented. An innate spirit body? After breaking through to the void interpretation stage, due to some reason, one can't consume spirit fruits to cultivate. Otherwise, with senior brother Hong's innate talent, he could have broken through to the void transformation stage before the age of 30 and escaped the fate of being an innate spirit body. Zhang Yin sighed in his heart. Heaven is jealous of geniuses. Zhang Yin muttered to himself in a low voice. Perhaps he was talking about the senior brother that he had never met, or perhaps he was talking about the red-clad young woman in the distance. In the history of Cloud Continent, there seemed to be very few people who could reverse the fate of an innate spirit body. Chapter 824. The possessor of the number 8 token, O Qin, entered the arena. O Qin could only choose two people, the possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling, and the possessor of the number 10 token, Zhang Shouyong. Not to mention Yi Ling had just fought a battle and could refuse his challenge with the reason of resting. Even if Yi Ling didn't enter the arena in the previous battle, he wouldn't choose Yi Ling for now. Presently, he needed to preserve his strength to deal with the challenges of experts. So now, he started to challenge from the weakest, and it was undoubtedly the best strategy. The possessor of the number 10 token. O Chen's gaze descended onto Zhang Shouyong as he challenged him. I admit defeat. Right when O Chen finished speaking, Zhang Shouyong had already admitted defeat without the slightest hesitation. He'd witnessed O Chen's strength earlier. O Chen possessed a cultivation at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage and had comprehended 2nd level void interpretation concept. O Chen was superior to him, so even if he accepted the challenge, the outcome would still be the same. Subsequently, it was the possessor of the number 9 token, Yi Ling, that issued a challenge, and she could only challenge Zhang Shouyong. Zhang Shouyong admitted defeat. Number 10. Meanwhile, the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, Ning Kan, looked at Zhang Shouyong and asked frankly, "Are you willing to be ranked at the 10th position in the martial competition? If you are, and no one challenges you in the future, then you don't have to waste your breath and admit defeat." Yes. Zhang Shouyong nodded and replied frankly. All right. Ning Kan nodded, and then he swept the surroundings with his gaze, causing it to descend onto the other 9 people including Duan Lingtian. The 10th position has already been confirmed. Now we'll continue to compete for the exact rankings of the top 9. Of course, if the person ranked at the last amongst all of you is willing to be ranked equal to the number token in your possession, then you can speak out. Presently, the person ranked at the last was Yi Ling. But Yi Ling obviously didn't intend to be willing to be ranked at the 9th position, and she had the intention of replacing the possessor of the number 8 token, O Chen, in her heart. Besides that, she wasn't convinced of Duan Lingtian and Zishang's strength. After a round passed and Zhang Shouyong was eliminated, the other 9 people continued. As the possessor of the number 1 token, Duan Lingtian was the first to enter the arena. Swoosh. His figure was like a gale as he arrived at the central area in the sky above the combat arena in the blink of an eye. Number 9. At the first moment, Duan Lingtian's gaze locked onto Yi Ling. Yi Ling was not surprised to be challenged by Duan Lingtian. Even though Zishang, who'd executed a secret technique to raise his strength to the 6th level of the void interpretation stage, had admitted defeat before Duan Lingtian. But as far as he was concerned, Zishang was like a candle that looked good on the outside but was useless. Otherwise, how could he have surrendered before Feng Tianwu without a fight? Duan Lingtian, you have to be careful. Otherwise, the most precious command token in your possession will change owners. Yi Ling reminded Duan Lingtian. I'll wait and see. Duan Lingtian smiled. As if she had noticed Duan Lingtian's contempt towards her, Yi Ling's face sank. Her figure flashed as she took the initiative to strike first. The 3-foot-long sword in her hand drifted along with the flow of the waves as she pointed it at Duan Lingtian. The moment she attacked, Yi Ling used her full strength without holding back. Duan Lingtian stood in place as if waiting for Yi Ling's attack to land on him. When they saw Yi Ling's attack coming closer and closer to Duanling Tian, the surrounding spectators gasped, and they felt that Duanling Tian was too careless. Yi Ling's sword arrived before Duanling Tian in the blink of an eye, and it was extremely close. At the critical moment, Duanling Tian's eyes flashed, and a dim light flickered in the depths of his eyes. 1,000 illusions. Instantly, Duanling Tian's vast spiritual force pierced into the soul brand in the depths of his soul, and he directly executed the soul skill that belonged solely to him. Instantly, his spiritual force constructed an illusory space, and the illusory space that appeared out of thin air enveloped Yi Ling. Duanling Tian doesn't want to live anymore? When they saw Yi Ling's sword had already arrived before Duanling Tian's chest and only needed a little bit more to penetrate through, many people felt their scalps go numb. At this moment, even the 3 monks of Empyrean Temple were shocked by Duanling Tian's actions. Isn't this courting death? In the distant sky, a trace of a bright light flashed within the eyes of Zhang Yan, and then he muttered to himself. Could it be that he wants to utilize his demonic technique again? Duanling Tian knew demonic techniques, and he'd heard Ziyin mention it more than once a few years ago. It was even to the extent that he'd witnessed it with his own 2 eyes. Demonic technique? Pei Yan's face remained expressionless when he heard Zhang Yan muttering to himself, but a trace of astonishment was mixed within the depths of his eyes. What's Yi Ling doing? Someone exclaimed in shock and broke the silence at the scene. When they saw Yi Ling's sword about to pierce Duanling Tian's chest, it suddenly changed directions and stabbed madly towards the space at the side, causing everyone to be dumbstruck. Has Yi Ling gone mad? She doesn't dare kill Duanling Tian? Wait, something seems to be off. Right when many people were surprised and bewildered, they saw a scene that caused them to be dumbstruck. After Yi Ling moved away the sword that pierced towards Duanling Tian, she actually turned around and attacked towards the air once more, and it was as if her opponent wasn't Duanling Tian but the air. Many people felt their scalps go numb when they saw this scene. Could it be that Yi Ling has gone mad? This was the thought in the hearts of most people. Only a few people withdrew their gazes from Yi Ling and looked at Duanling Tian with surprise and bewilderment. These few people were naturally the 2 vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort and the 3 monks of Empyrean Temple. As for Sword 13 and Saber 5, they'd heard Su Li and Long Yun mention Duanling Tian's ability many times, and even though they were surprised, they were mentally prepared since long ago. Demonic technique? After Pei Yan finished listening to Zhang Yan's narration via voice transmission, he still had an expressionless face, but when he replied to Zhang Yan, he rejected Zhang Yan's judgment. There are no demonic techniques in this world. I feel that Duanling Tian's ability is slightly similar to a soul skill. Of course, if he isn't an ordinary human but a variant, then this ability of his is extremely likely to be his innate divine ability. Soul skill? Innate divine ability? Zhang Yan's expression remained unchanged, yet his eyes were filled with bewilderment. These 2 words were extremely unfamiliar to him. There's a spiritual force fluctuation there. Yi Ling hasn't gone mad, she's instead fallen for Duanling Tian's trick. Besides the group of people from the Dark Han dynasty that weren't surprised by what had happened to Yi Ling, the members of the other 9 dynasties had shocked expressions, and a few void transformation stage inscription masters had even noticed some clues. Even though they were able to utilize their spiritual force to interfere with the spiritual force that enveloped Yi Ling, they didn't dare. What a joke. This was Skywolf Fort, and the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was being carried out. If they dared interfere and the Skywolf Fort blamed them, they would surely die without a doubt. Swoosh. Under the gazes of everyone present, Duanling Tian, who'd been standing on the spot without moving since the beginning, finally moved. Whirlwind. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a gale that charged towards Yi Ling. Yi Ling seemed to be ignorant when facing his charge, and she still swung her sword to battle the air as if she'd really gone mad. Bang. Duanling Tian easily moved around to Yi Ling's side before casually slapping out with his palm to injure Yi Ling and blast her flying, causing her to temporarily not have the strength to continue fighting. Meanwhile, Duanling Tian's spiritual force shook to shatter the illusory space he'd constructed with his soul skill, 1,000 illusions. Yi Ling's countenance was ghastly pale as she spat out a mouthful of blood before returning to her senses. When she saw the composed Duanling Tian, her expression couldn't help but go grim. In next to no time, the voice transmission of the representative of the Darqing dynasty sounded out by Yi Ling's ears, and she instantly found out what had happened earlier, causing her to be terrified to the point her face went ghastly pale. When she looked at Duanling Tian once more, besides terror, there was only terror in the depths of Yi Ling's eyes. So it turned out that everything she experienced earlier was fake. An illusory space. That was an illusory space. Yi Ling quickly guessed what had happened, and her first thought was if Duan Ling Tian had utilized an external force similar to inscriptions or an inscription formation. But with a quick thought, she felt it was impossible. An inscription formation had to be set up at a fixed place, and this was Skywolf Fort. So even if Duan Ling Tian really knew how to set up an inscription formation, he wouldn't dare act rashly. Most importantly, she didn't sense any fluctuations of inscriptions or inscription formations. It was precisely because of this that she'd confirmed one thing. The illusory space she faced earlier was executed by Duan Ling Tian himself, and it was similar to the soul skills of those special demon beasts of legend that possessed extraordinary natural talent. Now, I believe you have the ability to obtain the number 1 command token. Yi Ling took a deep breath and smiled amiably to Duan Ling Tian before taking the initiative to give him a flirtatious glance. Yes. But unfortunately, Duan Ling Tian only casually nodded to her before withdrawing. This caused her to be instantly exasperated. To think that she, Yi Ling, was the dignified number 1 figure in the younger generation of the Darqing dynasty, and even the emperor of the Darqing dynasty wanted to take her as his daughter-in-law, yet this Duan Ling Tian actually dared to completely disregard her. But when Yi Ling's gaze inadvertently descended into the distance and saw Feng Qianwu, who was chatting happily with Duan Ling Tian, the rage on her face vanished without a trace. She felt slightly ashamed of her inferiority before Feng Qianwu. Perhaps only a woman like her is worthy of him. Yi Ling laughed with self-ridicule, and then she returned to the Darqing dynasty's group. After Duan Ling Tian left the arena, it was the turn of the possessor of the number 2 command token, and it was precisely Feng Qianwu. After Feng Qianwu ascended the arena, her gaze locked onto the possessor of the number 8 command token, O Chen. O Chen's cultivation and concept were similar to Yi Ling, and his ability surpassed Yi Ling slightly. But in the end he still lost at Feng Qianwu's hands. The possessor of the number 3 command token, Qi Feng, ascended the arena. Victory. The possessor of the number 4 command token, Qin Kong, ascended the arena. Victory. Not long after, it was the turn of the possessor of the number 6 command token, Su Li, to ascend the arena. He challenged Yi Ling and won. After Su Li, it was the possessor of the number 7 command token, Zishang. As soon as Zishang ascended the arena, the surroundings were in an uproar. Do all of you think Zishang will call out a person to challenge and then admit defeat? Ah, there's really such a possibility. Secret technique? 6th level of the void interpretation stage? It's just a candle that looks good on the surface but is useless. Zishang, what an enormous joke. Chapter 825. The waves of ridicule from the surroundings entered into Zishang's ears, and it caused his expression to become unsightly and livid. The possessor of the number 8 token, O Chen. Because Yi Ling had just fought Su Li, Zishang could only choose O Chen, who possessed the number 8 token. O Chen had a casual expression as he similarly felt Zishang was only good-looking but useless. Whoosh. Along with a strand of a black-colored flame brand appearing between Zishang's brows, 80 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared once more in the sky above him, and they bared their fangs and brandished their claws with an imposing aura that shot into the sky like a rainbow. However, not many people were surprised now, and even more people looked at Zishang with ridicule as if they were waiting for Zishang to lose face once more. But in next to no time, the pupils of these people couldn't help but constrict. Because not only had Zishang revealed a strength at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage this time, he'd even exerted it. He heavily injured O Chen with a single strike. O Chen spat out a few mouthfuls of blood successively before fainting, and then he was taken away by the representative of the Darchu dynasty. This time all the voices that questioned Zishang stopped abruptly. Zishang looked at the surroundings and grunted coldly, and he seemed to be declaring his displeasure. No matter what, Zishang's domineering display of his strength at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage to defeat O Chen in a single move still shocked many people. What secret technique is that? It's too abnormal. No wonder Vice Fort Master Ning took him as his personal disciple, so it turns out that he has such a formidable ability. As expected of the personal disciple of Vice Fort Master Ning, he's extraordinary as expected. The various voices that ridiculed Zishang earlier had vanished, and only waves of praise remained. These people really changed their attitudes quickly. Su Li frowned. Duan Ling Tian smiled indifferently. They're only a group of opportunists that will fall wherever the wind blows. so there's no need to be serious with them. Zishang heavily injured Qin, causing Qin to lose the strength to continue fighting. It was even to the extent that after he consumed the grade 3 life recovery pill given by the Skywolf Fort, even though Qin recovered slightly, he wasn't able to recover completely. In this way, Qin could only be ranked at the 9th position in the martial competition. Yi Ling obtaining the number 8 token without shedding a drop of blood caused her to feel as if she was dreaming. All of this was given to her by Zishang. Yi Ling glanced at Zishang, her eyes filled with fear. After a moment she recalled that she had already been defeated by Duan Lingtian, Su Li and Feng Tianwu. She also knew that she wasn't a match for the other three. For a time she made a decision in her heart, and she looked at Ning Can. Vice Fort Master Ning, I'm willing to be ranked at the 8th position in the martial competition this time. Meanwhile, the 8th, 9th and 10th positions of the martial competition had been decided. The 4th round of selections continued. Just as Duan Lingtian, the possessor of token number 1, was about to enter the arena, Su Li called out to him. What is it? Duan Lingtian looked at Su Li in confusion. Meanwhile, Su Li didn't answer Duan Lingtian, and he looked at Ning Can, who was high in the sky instead, and said frankly, Duan Lingtian challenged me in this battle. I admit defeat. Ning Can nodded. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly as he looked at Su Li. Why are you in such a hurry? I still have a few people that I haven't challenged. If you enter the arena, you'll surely not challenge me and Tianwu first. Besides that, I still want to watch you fight those 3 fellows without any distractions. The meaning within Su Li's words was extremely obvious. He wanted to first decide his ranking before properly watching Duan Lingtian fight the other 3 fellows. As for those 3 fellows, they were naturally Qi Feng, Qin Kong and Ta Mu, and all of them were existences at the 4th level of the Void Interpretation stage. Subsequently it was Feng Tianwu's turn. I challenged the possessor of token number 6, Su Li. I admit defeat. Perhaps she was influenced by Su Li, but Feng Tianwu didn't enter the arena and directly admitted defeat to Su Li. There was a difference of 10 ancient horn dragons between her and Su Li, and coupled with Su Li's shocking child chainsword, she didn't have the slightest confidence in going against Su Li. Subsequently, the possessors of token number 3, 4 and 5 successively challenged Feng Tianwu, who just obtained token number 6. When facing these 3 existences that were even stronger than Su Li, Feng Tianwu didn't enter the arena and directly admitted defeat. Due to Su Li admitting that he was inferior to Qi Feng, Qin Kong and Ta Mu, their rankings rose successively. Qi Feng had obtained token number 2. Qin Ran had obtained token number 3. Ta Mu had obtained token number 4. As for Su Li, he obtained token number 5 instead. Feng Tianwu token number 6. Zishang token number 7. This was a temporary ranking. Whoosh. Duan Lingtian entered the arena, and his gaze locked onto Ta Mu. I challenged the possessor of token number 4. After a short moment, Ta Mu flew out and stood in confrontation with Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, you look weak, so hand over token number 1. Otherwise, I won't be courteous to you. Ta Mu grinned, and he seemed to be honest, yet his eyes were filled with strands of bright lights. That will depend on if you have the ability. Duan Lingtian spoke indifferently. Needless to say, Ta Mu's strength wasn't bad. At the very least, it could be considered to be not bad when compared to Yi Ling, who'd fought Duan Lingtian earlier. Not only had his cultivation broken through to the 4th level of the Void Interpretation stage, he'd even comprehended 3rd level Void Interpretation concept. But unfortunately, Ta Mu wasn't an inscription master. Thus, under Duan Lingtian's soul skill, 1000 illusions, Ta Mu was easily defeated by Duan Lingtian. Ta Mu lost to the point he was muddle-headed, and he had a bewildered expression. I lost? Right when the surrounding spectators were slightly speechless, Ta Mu wiped off the blood stains on the corners of his mouth, and his eyes glowed as he looked at Duan Lingtian as he said shamelessly, Duan Lingtian, take me as your disciple. Teach me the ability you used to deal with me earlier, how about it? I'm not interested. Duan Lingtian glanced indifferently at Ta Mu, and then he returned to the side of Feng Tianwu, Su Li and the others. But Ta Mu followed him instead. Master. I've decided I'll follow you in the future. I'll surely learn your ability. K off. Duan Lingtian frowned as he shouted out with a grim voice, and then his brows relaxed as he paid no further attention to Ta Mu. Ta Mu. Right at this moment, the representative of the Daryuan dynasty, the old man with a robust figure, soared through the sky and arrived by Ta Mu's side in a short moment before slapping the back of Ta Mu's head. Slap. After he slapped Tamu, the robust old man looked at Duan Lingtian. Please forgive Tamu if he's caused any trouble to you. Duan Lingtian nodded. I won't leave. I want to follow master, I want to follow my master. Tamu, who was dragged away by the robust old man, was ceaselessly shouting and pestering Duan Lingtian, and he seemed like an ignorant brat. This scene caused the surrounding spectators to be slightly speechless. Duan Lingtian was speechless when he heard Tamu repeatedly call Duan Lingtian master. Why didn't he know that he'd taken Tamu as his disciple? Brother Lingtian, I think it's pretty good even if you take that fellow as your disciple. In the future you'll have one more person to be at your beck and call. Zhang Shouyong smiled. Duan Lingtian rolled his eyes angrily at Zhang Shouyong, who took pleasure in Tamu's misfortune. Big brother Zhang, if you want him, then take him yourself. I want to as well. But the problem is that he doesn't take a fancy to me. Zhang Shouyong laughed bitterly. Tamu was similar in age to him, yet his strength far surpassed him. Making Tamu take him as his master was undoubtedly more difficult than ascending the heavens. After Tamu caused the commotion, the atmosphere at the scene underwent a slight change. Tamu, wanting to take Duan Lingtian as his master, seemed to be at a loss for whether to laugh or cry, yet everyone present was clearly aware that the reason Tamu did that was entirely because of Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability. Even if it was them, they were similarly filled with curiosity and yearning towards that ability. When the representatives of some dynasties focused their gazes on Duan Lingtian, their eyes were filled with greed, and they wished for nothing more than to capture Duan Lingtian and torture him to find out the secrets of his unfathomable ability. Duan Lingtian, the ability you executed that was similar to a soul skill. Could it be that it's an innate divine ability? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears, and it was precisely Sword 13's voice. Innate divine ability? Duan Lingtian was stunned. What's that? Under his bewilderment, Duan Lingtian searched through the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu, and in the end he finally found out what an innate divine ability was. It was a unique innate ability that variants that were between humans and demon beasts were born with, and it relied on spiritual force and was of a variety. Some were similar to soul skills and some were similar to secret techniques. Duan Lingtian laughed bitterly in his heart. He knew that Su Li's master had taken him to be a variant that was born from the combination of a human and demon beast. Perhaps sometimes being a variant isn't bad. At the very least, I don't have to worry about someone coveting my soul skill, 1,000 illusions, or doing something crazy to me. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart, and he quickly made a decision. Senior actually knows of innate divine abilities? Duan Lingtian looked at Sword 13 and replied via voice transmission with slight surprise, and he didn't answer Sword 13's question. On the other hand, when Sword 13 heard what Duan Lingtian said, he naturally thought that Duan Lingtian had tacitly admitted it. Moreover, besides this, he was really unable to think of how Duan Lingtian was able to execute an ability that was similar to a soul skill. After all, in Cloud Continent, only those special demon beasts with extraordinary natural talent were able to grasp various soul skills through the innate soul brand before they attained the Emperor stage. The Emperor stage was the general name of the Emperor Wu stage and Demon Emperor stage. Only after attaining the Emperor stage would human martial artists be able to utilize spiritual force to execute spiritual force abilities that were similar to soul skills against their enemies. The Empyrean temples Hui Ming and Hui Jing and the emotion-severing sex master, Peian, had similar thoughts as Sword 13. Are you aware of Duan Lingtian's background? Peian asked Zhang Yan in a low voice. Yes. Zhang Yan nodded. He's from the lowest level kingdom under the Darkhan dynasty that I was in earlier, and it can be said that he's from a completely grassroots background. The lowest level kingdom under the dynasty? Grassroots background? A person from a grassroots background in a tiny kingdom possesses such accomplishments before the age of 30? Unless such a person is a variant, or has obtained some great fortuitous encounter, otherwise, it's practically impossible for such a person to exist. Peian muttered to himself. Besides that, as far as he was concerned, how could a great fortuitous encounter be something that one could obtain just because one wanted to? Chapter 826. On Cloud Continent, there were many demons that had broken through to the void transformation stage and transformed into human form, yet they chose to live in seclusion because they were tired of fighting and killing. After living in seclusion, these demons might even find ordinary humans to mate with and live the rest of their lives. As far as Peian was concerned, Duan Lingtian's father or mother ought to be a demon that chose to live in seclusion in that tiny kingdom. What a pity. Peian sighed. Master, what's a pity? Zhang Yan was stunned. I presume you know the reason I brought you here today? That Duanling Tian is so close to Sword 13, so he'll surely follow Sword 13. Pan said. Don't worry, Master. Even if our emotion-severing sect doesn't have Duanling Tian, I'll surely obtain the profundity fragment you need at that place. Zhang Yan's gaze was firm as he emitted strong confidence. Profundity fragment. When he heard Zhang Yan's words, Pei Yan's face that had always been stoic had a rare slight ripple. Presently he was only a step away from the martial monarch stage. And it was precisely this step that caused him to be unable to break through to the martial monarch stage. On Cloud Continent, there were many martial artists like him, and there were even some martial artists that had cultivated to this stage at a younger age than him, yet they were unable to break through to the martial monarch stage in their entire lifetime. All of this was because those people were unable to comprehend profundity. Profundity was the path to step into the martial monarch stage, and so long as one didn't comprehend profundity, one would be unable to become a martial monarch expert. Senior brother, you said he's a variant? Hui Jing looked at Hui Ming with a serious expression and asked. Hui Ming nodded. Besides this, I can't think of anything else. Moreover, there are only two possibilities for him to possess such a cultivation and ability at such an age. Firstly, he's a variant. Secondly, he has an extremely fortuitous encounter. But, how could a fortuitous encounter that allowed him to possess such a cultivation and ability at such an age be something that can be obtained just like that? Hui Ming said with a serious expression. Variant? The young monk standing behind Hui Ming stared at Duanling Tian with a burning gaze as battle-intent soared from his body. Duanling Tian noticed the fierce gaze of the young monk at the first possible moment, and when they met eyes, he was shocked in his heart. Looks like besides abstinence and reciting Buddhist scriptures, the monks in this world similarly possess the heart of a powerhouse that refuses to submit to others. Almsgiver Duan, if there's a chance in the future, this little monk would like to battle you. A clear voice transmission pierced into Duanling Tian's ears. It was precisely the voice of the young monk. Anytime. Duanling Tian replied via voice transmission, and he didn't lose out in the slightest in terms of imposing manner. After Duanling Tian defeated Ta Mu, it was Qi Feng's turn. Now Qi Feng was the possessor of token number 2. He could choose from Zishang and Qin Kong, and in the end he chose Qin Kong, who was the possessor of token number 3. Qi Feng, I'll definitely beat you this time. Qin Ran and Qi Feng were old rivals. After confronting Qi Feng, she made a bold statement. When faced with Qin Kong's arrogance, Qi Feng seemed to be extremely calm instead. Both of them were 4th-level void interpretation stage martial artists and had similarly comprehended 4th-level void interpretation stage concept. So the amplification of the grade 3 spirit weapons in their hands was equal. As for other low-level void initiation stage concepts, both of them were on par. All in all, it could be summarized in 4 words. Equal in strength. Both of them attacked with their full strengths and were equal in strength, so they competed in combat experience and comprehension of martial skills. Of course, there were also some details. The battle between the two of them was like a raging fire, and it drew the gazes of everyone. As he looked at the two figures that ceaselessly crisscrossed and listened to the waves of explosions that ceaselessly sounded out, Duanling Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he muttered. Looks like it wasn't luck that allowed Qi Feng to defeat Qin Kong repeatedly in the past. Duanling Tian was able to discern that even though both of them seemed to be equal in strength on the surface, Qi Feng leaned towards steadiness and was extremely patient. As for Qin Kong, he became more and more irritable along with the passage of time, and in the end he even started to reveal some fine flaws. In a battle between experts, even fine flaws were usually able to become the key to one's defeat. Qi Feng was a perfect example of this. Bang! At the instant Qin Kong revealed a fine flaw, Qi Feng attacked like a bolt of lightning and utilized Qin Kong's flaw to suppress Qin Kong in one go. In the end, Qi Feng held a bow in one hand while condensing arrows in the other, and 2 arrows condensed from material wind concept tore through the sky and gave rise to ear-piercing whistles as they easily pierced through Qin Kong's shoulders. Why is it like this? Qin Kong abruptly stopped moving as he looked at the fresh blood that ceaselessly flowed from the bloody holes on his shoulders, and he was slightly dazed for a moment. He'd lost again. He'd lost again. At this instant, Qin Kong was like a living dead, and he allowed the bloody arrows on his shoulders to shoot out violently, yet he didn't use his origin energy to stop his injuries. Qin Kong's injuries were stopped only when the representative of the Darqin dynasty moved forward and brought Qin Kong away, yet Qin Kong still hadn't recovered from his shock. This Qi Feng is calm, patient, and resolute. I hope he isn't an inscription master. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath. Up until now, there weren't many young geniuses amongst the 10 dynasties that were able to make him take them seriously, including Ta Mu and Qin Kong. Yet now, not only did Qi Feng cause his expression to become serious, he seemed to have sensed a trace of a dangerous aura on Qi Feng. This sort of feeling was extremely strange, yet extremely clear. The fourth round of the selections continued. Ta Mu challenged Zishang. The outcome was obvious. Ta Mu lost miserably. In next to no time, it was Duan Lingtian's turn. Duan Lingtian challenged Qin Kong and utilized the illusory space created by his soul skill, Thousand Illusions, to envelop Qin Kong and easily defeat him. Qin Kong followed in Ta Mu's footsteps. If you have the balls, don't use such shameful methods. After Duan Lingtian withdrew his soul skill, Qin Kong wiped off the bloodstains on the corners of his mouth and spoke hatefully to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but laugh when he heard Qin Kong's naive words. The surrounding spectators started laughing as well. Qin Kong is a 4th-level void interpretation stage martial artist at any rate, yet he actually spoke such naive words. Laughable. Yeah, Duan Lingtian didn't rely on any external forces and relied on his own ability. On what basis can he exert his full strength, yet Duan Lingtian can't? Waves of mocking laughter entered into Duan Lingtian's ears, and it caused Qin Kong's expression to be livid as he glared hatefully at Duan Lingtian before returning to the Darqin dynasty's group. Subsequently, Qi Feng entered the arena. Qi Feng challenged Ta Mu and Ta Mu admitted defeat. Qin Kong challenged Ta Mu, and Ta Mu admitted defeat. No matter if it was Qi Feng or Qin Kong, Ta Mu had always been seriously observing their strengths, and it was precisely because of this that he was very clearly aware of the gap between the two of them. Once I learn his ability from my master, I'll surely beat all of you until you piss your pants in terror. Even though Ta Mu admitted defeat, he was extremely optimistic, and after he grunted twice, he looked flatteringly at the violet-clothed young man in the distance, Duan Lingtian. But unfortunately, Duan Lingtian didn't spare him a glance at all. But even then, Ta Mu wasn't discouraged in the slightest, and it seemed as if he'd taken Duan Lingtian as his master for his entire lifetime. In next to no time, under Ning Can's intentional arrangement, Ta Mu, Qin Kong, and Qi Feng successively went against Zishang. Zishang executed his secret technique, causing a strand of black-colored flame brand to appear between his brows, and after his strength advanced to the 6th level of the void interpretation stage, he easily defeated Ta Mu and Qin Kong. Qi Feng was defeated in 3 moves by him. For a time, Zishang once again took back the number 2 token that belonged to him. Even though he'd admitted defeat before Feng Tianwu, Ta Mu, Qin Kong, and Qi Feng that were difficult for Feng Tianwu to go against had successively lost at Zishang's hands. So Zishang once again seized back the number 2 token that belonged to him with an advantage of 3-1. As for Su Li, he was similarly unable to defeat Ta Mu, Qin Kong, and Qi Feng, so he refused Duan Lingtian's good intentions of lending the Devil Seal tablet to him to defeat Zishang. Even if he was able to defeat Zishang, he was still unable to shake Zishang's identity as the possessor of the number 2 token. For a time, besides Duan Lingtian that hadn't fought Qi Feng, the rankings of the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties were as follows. Possessor of the number 1 token, Duan Lingtian. Number 2, Zishang. Number 3, Qi Feng. Number 4, Qin Kong. Number 5, Ta Mu. Number 6, Su Li. Number 7, Feng Tianwu. Number 8, Yiling. Number 9, Ochin. Number 10, Zhang Shouyong. Logically speaking, Duan Lingtian ought to have fought Qi Feng since long ago. However, Ning Can had suddenly interfered earlier and allowed Duan Lingtian to rest temporarily before allowing the others to decide on the specific rankings before allowing Duan Lingtian to go against Qi Feng. Ning Can's actions caused Duan Lingtian to smell a trace of a scheme. Even if it was the surrounding spectators, they faintly felt that something wasn't right. Why did Vice Fort Master Ning do this? Even Zishang, Qin Kong, and Ta Mu lost at Duan Lingtian's hands as expected. Could it be that he thinks Qi Feng can threaten Duan Lingtian? In my opinion, this is simply unnecessary. Even though Qi Feng's strength is extremely strong indeed, Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability caused even Qin Kong and Ta Mu to be affected. Qi Feng is probably not a match for Duan Lingtian. The surrounding spectators discussed animatedly, and all of them didn't feel that Qi Feng was able to defeat Duan Lingtian. Elder brother Duan, I keep having the feeling that something isn't right. Before Duan Lingtian entered the arena, Feng Qianwu's beautiful brows knit together as she spoke to Duan Lingtian with slight fear. Don't worry. Actually, how could Duan Lingtian not have this feeling? But he knew that he had to participate in this battle. Whirlwind. Under the anticipating gazes of Feng Qianwu and the others, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a gale that instantly arrived at the central area in the sky above the combat arena. Qi Feng had been waiting there since long ago. For a time, both of them stood facing each other and stood in confrontation. Duan Lingtian, so long as you defeat me or even kill me, the first in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties will be yours. Qi Feng stared fixedly at Duan Lingtian, and his focused and fierce gaze seemed as if it could see through everything. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but exclaim with admiration in his heart. Qi Feng was worthy of being someone that played with the bow, and the focus and fierceness of his gaze was something that an ordinary person couldn't compare to. Qi Feng, if I'm not wrong, you ought to be an inscription master, right? Chapter 827. How did you know? After Duan Lingtian's voice transmission entered into Qi Feng's ears, it caused Qi Feng to be stunned, and then he replied to Duan Lingtian via voice transmission with slight astonishment. But his heart was still filled with bewilderment. Besides the members of the Darky dynasty, only the Vice Fort Master Ning and Vice Fort Master Feng of Skywolf Fort knew that he was an inscription master. Not only do I know that you're an inscription master, I even know that Ning can ask you to kill me. Moreover, he ought to have told you that you're a 4th level void interpretation stage inscription master, and so long as you stretch out your spiritual force, you're completely capable of disregarding my ability, right? Duan Lingtian continued with an indifferent voice that didn't contain the slightest expression. Qi Feng was shocked. Never had he imagined that Duan Lingtian would even know this. After all, even the other members of the Darky dynasty didn't know this, and only he and the Skywolf Fort's Vice Fort Master Ning and Vice Fort Master Feng knew. You guessed. Qi Feng took a deep breath and asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian didn't deny it and nodded frankly. Actually, when Ning can intentionally arrange the battle between him and Qi Feng to be the last, he'd faintly realized that the situation was slightly bad. Along with the passage of time, he realized a problem. Even though it was only a strand of an incomplete soul, the soul of the expert suspected to be Emperor Wu within Zishang's body would surely be able to discern the strength of his spiritual force when he executed the soul skill, 1000 Illusions. The strength of his spiritual force just happened to be at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage. Besides existences at the 5th level of the void interpretation stage and above that were capable of disregarding his soul skill, 1000 Illusions, human martial artists at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage were similarly capable of disregarding his soul skill. Looks like Zishang has really racked his brains to want me dead. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath as cold lights flickered within his eyes, and it faintly contained terrifying killing intent. He believed that even those void transformation stage inscription masters present might not be able to detect the exact strength of the spiritual energy he possessed now. Only the remnant soul that was suspected to be Emperor Wu in Zishang's body could know the exact strength of his spiritual power. So, behind all of this, it was definitely Zishang who was playing tricks. As for the purpose, it was obvious that they wanted to kill him. Since you've already guessed it, why do you still want to go on stage? Why don't you just admit defeat? Qi Feng sighed via voice transmission, and his tone seemed to carry slight pity mixed within. What? Do you pity me? Duan Lingtian ridiculed via voice transmission. If I'm not wrong, so long as you kill me, you'll surely be able to obtain extremely generous rewards, right? Qi Feng grunted via voice transmission. Remuneration? You're underestimating me too much. I admit that after Vice Fort Master Ning and Vice Fort Master Feng found out that I was an inscription master and could counter you, they had indeed promised me generous rewards to kill you. But I refused. Qi Feng, am unyielding and unyielding. How can I bend my back because of a few concept fragments? Although, I do need those concept fragments. But there is no enmity between us, so I won't go against my conscience and kill you. Conscience? Needless to say, Qi Feng's words caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but be moved. He was naturally able to discern if Qi Feng's words were true or false. Then you, Duan Lingtian frowned, and he faintly realized that it was very likely that he'd really wronged Qi Feng. I'm a person, I have loved ones, and I have people I want to protect. After I refused, Ning Can and Feng Wei gave up on using soft tactics and chose to use force. They said that if I didn't do as they said, then they would send people to the Darky dynasty to kill everyone related to me. When Qi Feng spoke up to hear, his tone was filled with rage and helplessness. He was enraged by Ning Can and Feng Wei's overbearingness, and he was enraged by his own uselessness. But when he thought of how it was extremely likely that his friends and family would be killed because of a single choice he made, he could only helplessly compromise. So, do you understand now? Qi Feng spoke bitterly via voice transmission. Duan Lingtian's face was covered in a layer of frost since long ago. Never had he imagined that Ning Can and Feng Wei would actually use such despicable methods for the sake of killing him. Using the family of another to threaten another to help them kill him, they were simply worse than animals. Originally, I thought that I could only go against my conscience and kill you. But since you've already guessed it, then I'm not afraid to tell you. In this way, I can be considered to have given myself an explanation. Qi Feng spoke via voice transmission. Moreover, you were actually able to guess all of this and still dared to come up after guessing it? I presume you've thought of a way to deal with it, right? Or perhaps your spiritual force has already improved once more. Qi Feng continued. You're wrong. Duan Lingtian rejected Qi Feng's guess via voice transmission. I'm wrong? Qi Feng was stunned. Yes. Duan Lingtian replied, and then he said, I've indeed guessed your motives, but my spiritual force hasn't broken through. Besides that, I don't have a way to deal with it for now. What? Qi Feng was greatly shocked in his heart, and then he said via voice transmission, Then aren't you courting death? Originally, Ning Can, who was threatened by Ning Can and Feng Wei and had no choice but to agree to their demands, had already made the decision to help the tyrant and kill Duan Lingtian. The reason he'd made this decision was only for the sake of the lives of his friends and family, and not for the benefits promised by Ning Can and Feng Wei. He was already prepared to bear the condemnation of his conscience for his entire lifetime. But unexpectedly, Duan Lingtian had actually exposed everything he wanted to do, and this caused the decision he'd made earlier to be shaken, causing him to feel even more guilty in his heart. You can understand it like this. When he heard Qi Feng, Duan Lingtian replied via voice transmission, and then he said, All right. Make a move for the sake of your friends and family. Qi Feng was dumbstruck. Has this Duan Lingtian gone mad? He clearly knows that he's courting death, yet he still dares to come up. Moreover, he speaks frankly as if he's really unafraid of death. What exactly do you want? Qi Feng gulped down a mouthful of saliva as strands of cold sweat flowed out from his forehead, and he asked via voice transmission. Didn't you say so? I'm courting death. Duan Lingtian was slightly speechless. Didn't I answer him earlier? This Qi Feng is really forgetful. Don't joke around. Qi Feng laughed bitterly as he replied. Do I look like I'm joking? Duan Lingtian frowned and urged. Quickly make a move. If this stalemate continues, then be careful that Ning Can and Feng Wei notice an inkling. At that time, it wouldn't just be you, even your friends and family would be unable to bear the consequences. No. Qi Feng refused and said via voice transmission. It was fine if you didn't know earlier, but since you've already found out now, I'm unable to do this no matter what. You should admit defeat. I'll think of another way to deal with my own matters. At this moment, Qi Feng was unable to pass the barrier in his heart. You're a man, why are you so hesitant? How can you be sure that there isn't a solution that's perfect for both sides? Quickly make a move. Duan Lingtian shouted via voice transmission, and it shocked Qi Feng to the point of completely recovering from his shock, causing the haze from before to be swept away. You really want me to make a move? You really won't admit defeat? Qi Feng took a deep breath and asked with a low voice. Meanwhile, he'd noticed the fierce gazes that Ning Can and Feng Wei shot over as well, and coupled with Duan Lingtian's urging, the origin energy on his body started to rise. Make a move. Duan Lingtian nodded and could be considered to have answered Qi Feng. Even though I don't know what you want to do. But I still have to remind you that you must be careful. Once you feel you're no match for me, then quickly admit defeat. After Qi Feng finished speaking, his eyes suddenly became fierce, and the gaze that shot out from them seemed to be able to see through everything. That's right. When he saw Qi Feng had recovered his peak state in battle, Duan Lingtian revealed a smile, yet the depths of his eyes started to flicker with a dim light. Thousand illusions. Instantly, Duan Lingtian's spiritual force pierced into the soul brand in the depths of his soul, and he directly executed a soul skill. An illusory space was constructed and enveloped Qi Feng. Duan Lingtian has made a move. It's that unfathomable ability again. Looks like Qi Feng is going to lose. Qin Kong's strength is almost on par with Qi Feng, yet she was defeated in a single move by Duan Lingtian's unfathomable ability. I presume Qi Feng will have a similar outcome. The surrounding spectators seemed to have already seen the scene of Qi Feng being heavily injured and defeated by Duan Tian in a single move. As far as they were concerned, this battle was without the slightest suspense. Duan Tian, let me see how you use an illusory realm soul skill executed by a 4th level void interpretation stage spiritual force to deal with a 4th level void interpretation stage inscription master. Zishang looked at Duan Tian from afar, and a wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Even though you didn't die at my hands, I'm still extremely happy because there'll be one less person in this world that can go against me and threaten me in the future. Your Devil Seal tablet will soon become mine as well. The brilliant life of I, Zishang, has only just begun, whereas the life of you, Duan Tian, will come to an end today. Zishang's face was covered in delight when he thought of this, and he seemed as if he'd already seen the scene of Duan Tian being killed by Qi Feng. Duan Tian refused to become my personal disciple in public and caused me to lose face, so he has to pay the price. Ning Can's ghastly gaze stared fixedly at Duan Tian's figure as he muttered. Slap. A light slap sounded out, and it was Qi Feng's spiritual force that swept out to shatter Duan Tian's illusory space and completely cripple Duan Tian's soul skill. If Qi Feng's spiritual force was only at the 3rd level of the void interpretation stage, it would be insufficient to shake the illusory space that Duan Tian constructed with his 4th level void interpretation stage spiritual force. But it just so happened that Qi Feng's spiritual force was at the 4th level of the void interpretation stage, and it just happened to be capable of countering Duan Tian's illusory space. At this instant, the spiritual forces of the representatives of the various dynasties that were inscription masters noticed an inkling as well. Duan Tian's unfathomable ability has been destroyed. I truly never imagined that Qi Feng was actually an inscription master. It wasn't just that, after he extended his spiritual force, he actually easily destroyed Duan Tian's unfathomable ability. The scene before our eyes is truly surprising. Chapter 828. The representatives of the various dynasties that were inscription masters were completely in an uproar. Duan Tian's unfathomable ability was destroyed? Qi Feng was an inscription master, yet his spiritual force easily destroyed Duan Tian's ability by stretching out his spiritual force? The words of these inscription masters quickly entered into the ears of everyone present, and it caused everyone to look at Duan Tian and Qi Feng in disbelief. They quickly noticed that Qi Feng seemed to have utterly not noticed the unfathomable ability Duan Tian executed, and he stared fixedly at Duan Tian from the beginning until the end. Could it be that Qi Feng really destroyed Duan Tian's ability? If it's really like this, then wouldn't Qi Feng be able to easily obtain victory? Duan Tian is in danger. Instantly, the group of people that were originally filled with confidence towards Duan Tian couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for Duan Tian when they saw Qi Feng withdraw his grade 3 spirit bow. I was wondering why Ning can specially arrange this. So it turns out that Qi Feng is an inscription master, and he's even able to counter brother Ling Tian. Zhang Shouyang's expression was unsightly as he looked at Duan Tian with a worried expression as he muttered. Duan Tian was able to come this far by relying on his unfathomable ability. Now that his ability has been destroyed, I'm afraid he's in danger. A worried expression appeared on Su Li's face. Elder brother Duan. Feng Qinwu's beautiful eyes squinted slightly as the red robe on her fluttered without the wind, and she seemed as if she was prepared to lend Duan Tian a hand at any moment. Ling Tian kid, since he's an inscription master and can counter you, then you should quickly admit defeat. Feng Wu Dao sent a voice transmission to Duan Tian. You're still young, your path in the future is still very long. It's fine if you don't want the first in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Even though there hadn't been any progress between Duan Tian and Feng Qianwu until now, but in Feng Wu Dao's heart, he'd taken Duan Tian to be his son-in-law since long ago, so he naturally didn't wish for anything to happen to Duan Tian. Unfortunately, Duan Tian didn't seem to hear him at all. Not only did he not reply, he didn't even look in his direction. This made him a little worried. What is this kid doing? Actually, it wasn't just Duan Tian who sent a voice transmission to ask Duan Tian to admit defeat. Even Feng Qianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyang had persuaded Duan Tian on more than one occasion. However, in the face of their dissuasion, Duan Tian turned a deaf ear and continued to do as he wished, as if he did not hear them at all. Qi Feng quickly kill him, so as to avoid him admitting defeat. Ning Can looked at Qi Feng, who'd already withdrawn a grade 3 spirit bow and condensed an arrow with his origin energy combined with 4th level intermediate wind concept, and he shouted out via voice transmission. Qi Feng shuddered when he was shouted at by Ning Can, and his gaze became even more focused and fierce. His gaze locked onto Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. At this moment, it seemed as if only Duan Lingtian remained in the world in his eyes. When Qi Feng destroyed his soul skill, 1000 Illusions, and withdrew a grade 3 spirit bow, Duan Lingtian's expression had already become completely serious. Without the reliance of his soul skill, 1000 Illusions, he was utterly unable to go against Qi Feng with his current strength. But there was naturally a reason why he hadn't admitted defeat until now. Unknowingly, the origin energy in Duan Lingtian's body had completely seethed, and the mental cultivation method of the 7th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Sword Dragon form, was circulated along with it. Origin energy had just risen on Duan Lingtian's body when it fused together with his 2nd level intermediate wind concept and transformed into true wind. Strong winds coiled around his body, yet it didn't give Duan Lingtian the slightest sense of security. Under Qi Feng's gaze that seemed capable of seeing through everything, Duan Lingtian felt that he had nowhere to hide, and even if he utilized his movement technique, Whirlwind, to flash about in all directions, his heart was still filled with uneasiness. He'd witnessed Qi Feng's ability earlier. Besides possessing formidable strength, Qi Feng was even a natural archer, and he possessed all the characteristics of an outstanding archer. Calmness, patience, and resolution. Duan Lingtian wasn't unfamiliar with these 3 characteristics. During his life as a mercenary on Earth in his previous life, Duan Lingtian could be considered to be an all-round king of soldiers, and he similarly possessed these characteristics. Moreover, these characteristics were the characteristics he possessed as a top sniper. Snipers and archers seemed to be extremely different, yet they achieved the same result through different means. It was precisely because of this that Duan Lingtian felt uneasy when facing Qi Feng. Because he knew how terrifying an archer that possessed these 3 characteristics was. Practically every single arrow in the hands of an archer like this was capable of piercing through a willow leaf, and there wasn't a single arrow that missed its target. Come. In next to no time, Duan Lingtian adjusted his state of mind. A grade 3 spirit sword appeared in his hand, and then it was coiled by material wind concept and emitted strands of sharp aura. It was an aura that was similar to a blade of wind. At the same time, the origin energy within Duan Lingtian's body seemed to have transformed into numerous roaring dragons that ceaselessly charged through the meridians in his body according to the mental cultivation method of the 7th form of the 9 Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Sword Dragon form. Every single charge carried along the formidable medicinal strength of the rebirth pill, and it ceaselessly accumulated strength as if it was preparing for something. A light sound resounded out, and it caused everyone present to hold their breaths. It was the arrow that was completely condensed from material wind concept in Qi Feng's hand, and it was knocked on the grade 3 spirit bow in his hand. Moreover, it was pressed against the bowstring before drawing the bowstring. The bowstring was pulled back to form a full moon shape. Qi Feng's gaze that seemed to be able to see through everything locked onto Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. Qi Feng's hair shook as he knocked the arrow, and in the end, even his hairband broke apart. In the sky, the energy of heaven and earth roiled before finally condensing into the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth. A total of 151 ancient horned dragon silhouettes were accumulating strength and waiting to be deployed. Presently, Qi Feng's hair fluttered without the wind, and when combined with the ancient horned dragon silhouettes that covered the sky, it seemed to have transformed into a magnificent and perfect scene. Finally, at the instant the hearts of the surrounding spectators rose to their throats, Qi Feng released the arrow that was condensed from material wind concept. Swish! The arrow instantly vanished from the grade 3 spirit bow and tore through the sky. In the sky, the 151 ancient horned dragon silhouettes bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they flashed out, and their speed was so swift that it was like a bolt of lightning that flashed past the horizon. So swift. At practically the instant Qi Feng released his grip, Duan Lingtian's expression couldn't help but go grim. At practically the exact same moment, the arrow that was shot out instantly enlarged before Duan Lingtian's eyes, and it pointed directly at the space between his brows and was about to pierce into his body. Swish! At the instant Qi Feng released his grip, the grade 3 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand already seemed to have foresight, and it shot horizontally towards the space between Duan Lingtian's brows. At practically the instant the grade 3 spirit sword in Duan Lingtian's hand was placed horizontally between his brows, The arrow that was completely condensed from material third-level intermediate wine concept had arrived as well, and it directly collided with the body of the Grade 3 spirit sword. Instantly, Duanling Tian felt a terrifying force surge into the Grade 3 spirit sword in his hand, causing the space between his thumb and index finger to split open and drip with fresh blood. It wasn't just that, the formidable force blasted onto his body and fiercely knocked him flying. Swoosh! Duanling Tian flew out like an arrow that left the bow, and the hand that held the sword had completely lost all feeling, and Duanling Tian didn't even know when the Grade 3 spirit sword had left his hand. Presently, he was facing the force that came from the arrow that entered his body. This force was extremely overbearing, and as soon as it entered Duanling Tian's body, it shattered the meridians it passed through inch by inch, and it injured Duanling Tian's internal organs. Wah! Oh. During the process of Duanling Tian being blasted flying, blood ceaselessly sprayed out from his mouth, and it was all blood that came from the injuries of his meridians and internal organs. Elder brother Duan. Feng Qianwu's beautiful eyes squinted, and her eyes almost split apart as she cried out in shock. Her figure was like a flame as it rose up, and she wanted to go rescue Duanling Tian, yet she was stopped by Feng Wudao. Feng Wudao knew that not to mention his daughter didn't have the strength to rescue Duanling Tian. Even if she did, once she interfered in this battle, Skywolf Fort would absolutely not let the matter go. Ling Tian quickly admit defeat. When he saw Qi Feng condensing another arrow and knocking it on the Grade 3 spirit bow before drawing it to a full moon, Feng Wudao couldn't help but continue sending voice transmissions into Duanling Tian's ears. Duanling Tian quickly admit defeat. Brother Ling Tian. Su Li and Zhang Shouyong saw the scene before them, and their bodies trembled from excitement. They clenched their fists tightly as they ceaselessly sent voice transmissions into Duanling Tian's ears with the intention of making Duanling Tian admit defeat. Elder brother Duan. Elder brother Duan. Admit defeat. Quickly admit defeat. Feng Qianwu's beautiful eyes were suffused with crimson red as she ceaselessly exclaimed in shock, and she completely disregarded her image. At this moment, in her heart, she only hoped that Duanling Tian would be able to survive, and everything else wasn't important. This Duanling Tian still hasn't admitted defeat until now. Could it be that he really wants to court death? Qi Feng is about to release another arrow, and he'll die for sure once this arrow is released. The surrounding spectators shook their heads, and they felt that if Duanling Tian still didn't admit defeat, then he would surely die here today. Amit Ba. The Empyrean Temple's Hui Ming and Hui Jing pressed their palms together and muttered. Duanling Tian, you said you'd fight me in the future. Could it be that you want to break your promise? The young monk's gaze was like a bolt of lightning as he stared at Duanling Tian's figure and muttered to himself. Zhang Yin, you have to properly learn from this Duanling Tian in the future. He's not simple, not simple. The emotion-severing sex master, Payan, seemed to have noticed something, and his eyes revealed a trace of understanding as he spoke to Zhang Yin in a low voice. Learn from Duanling Tian? Zhang Yin was puzzled. Wasn't this Duanling Tian about to be killed? Whoosh. Finally, Duanling Tian's figure that was blasted flying stopped in midair. However, his body was trembling as if he was experiencing something in his body. Within Duanling Tian's body, that strong force that came from Qi Feng's arrow fiercely pierced into his main meridians after destroying Duanling Tian's meridians and internal organs. Chapter 829. As soon as the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill emerged, it perfectly fused with the origin energy in Duanling Tian's body, and they resisted the formidable force from outside together. With the addition of the rebirth pill's medicinal strength, the origin energy in Duanling Tian's body seemed as if it was assisted by the gods, and it easily annihilated the external force. Subsequently, the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill started to return to the depths of Duanling Tian's dantian and hide there. Of course, a large portion of it had completely fused into the origin energy in Duanling Tian's body because they fought side by side earlier, causing Duanling Tian's origin energy to expand, and it fiercely charged forward as if it was injected with chicken blood. Bang! A light bang sounded out, and Duanling Tian's bottleneck that hadn't moved for a long time, the bottleneck to the third level of the void interpretation stage, was broken with a bang. Instantly, Duanling Tian's origin energy underwent a transformation. Third level of the void interpretation stage. I've broken through? Duanling Tian's heart surged when he noticed the changes in his body. He knew that he'd succeeded, and he'd successfully relied on that energy to break through to the third level of the void interpretation stage. In next to no time Duan Lingtian was stunned. Because he noticed that after the overbearing origin energy in his body charged through the bottleneck to the third level of the void interpretation stage, it didn't reduce in the slightest and continued charging forward. After he noticed this, Duan Lingtian's pupils constricted, and he didn't hesitate in the slightest to circulate the mental cultivation method of the seventh form of the Nine Dragons War Sovereign technique, the Sword Dragon form. His origin energy fiercely flashed out, and it was completely urged by the overbearing medicinal strength left behind by the rebirth pill, and it seemed as if it was injected with chicken blood and utterly didn't know how to stop. Instantly, Duan Lingtian noticed to his astonishment that the bottleneck to the fourth level of the void interpretation stage had formed as soon as he'd broken through to the third level of the void interpretation stage. Bang! Duan Lingtian hadn't even had the time to react when the bottleneck that led to the fourth level of the void interpretation stage was instantly blasted open, whereas Duan Lingtian's origin energy underwent a change once more. At this moment, the speed of the origin energy that was urged on by the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill slowed down slightly, but it still didn't show any signs of stopping. Finally, after the bottleneck to the fifth level of the void interpretation stage appeared, his origin energy completely calmed down, whereas the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill was completely exhausted. 2 levels? Duan Lingtian was stunned, completely stunned. He originally only intended to rely on the strength of Qi Feng's arrow to take the risk of stimulating the medicinal strength of the rebirth pill in his body and break through the bottleneck that led to the third level of the void interpretation stage. But who would have thought that he still underestimated the overbearing medicinal strength of the rebirth pill? The medicinal strength of the rebirth pill directly urged on his origin energy, causing him to successively break through 2 levels and break through to the fourth level of the void interpretation stage in one go. Moreover, it was the late stage of the fourth level of the void interpretation stage, and it directly formed the bottleneck that led to the fifth level of the void interpretation stage. In other words, if he advanced a step further, he would be able to break through to the fifth level of the void interpretation stage. The pleasant surprise came too quickly, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be slightly unable to recover from his shock. When a wave of piercing howls sounded out by his ears and he felt as if his throat was locked onto by something, Duan Lingtian didn't even have the time to look before guessing what had happened. Qi Feng's second arrow was coming. Without the slightest hesitation, Duan Lingtian raised his hand and a sword appeared out of thin air in his hand, a sword that emitted a terrifying aura. Sword drawing arts. At this moment, what Duan Lingtian needed to do was stop Qi Feng's arrow and not take the initiative to launch an attack. So he didn't utilize the 9 Dragons' Radiant Flash and instead utilized the most straightforward sword drawing arts. When the sword was drawn, the vast origin energy Duan Lingtian had just broken through instantly gushed into the sword, and the second-level intermediate wind concept fused into his origin energy at the same time. Swish! The sword Duan Lingtian hastily withdrew from his hand was the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, and when combined with the fourth-level void interpretation stage origin energy he possessed now, he mobilized the strength of 120 ancient horned dragons. Half of it was the strength contained within the fourth-level void interpretation stage origin energy, and the other half was the amplification of the quasi-royal grade spirit sword. It wasn't just that, there was also the strength of 30 ancient horned dragons contained within Duan Lingtian's second-level intermediate wind concept. When the two were added together, it was an entire strength of 150 ancient horned dragons. It practically just happened to be equal to the strength contained within Qi Feng's arrow, and the outcome was obvious. When the sword was drawn and the arrow shattered, a terrifying force emitted from the point of collision and gave rise to a terrifying wave of air. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Terrifying violent winds swept out from all directions, and it blew to the point some young geniuses with comparatively lower cultivations couldn't help but squint their eyes. Duan Lingtian, who was at the center of the storm, didn't move at all. The sword in his hand had already been put away since an unknown time, and the sword light from before that was like a bolt of lightning was completely obliterated after it shattered Qi Feng's arrow. The vast and surging energy of the heavens and the earth in the sky was unable to condense into the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth in time in the end. Who? Duan Lingtian, who realized he hadn't exposed the quasi-royal grade spirit sword, and he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Right when everyone including Qi Feng was dumbstruck, Duan Lingtian moved. Whirlwind. The direction Duan Lingtian flashed out was precisely the direction Qi Feng was at. 1,000 illusions. This time, the spiritual force Duan Lingtian urged out was like the difference between the heavens and the earth when compared to the spiritual force from before. After he broke through to the 4th level of the Void Interpretation stage, his spiritual force broke through to the 6th level of the Void Interpretation stage along with it, and the illusory space constructed from his soul skill, Thousand Illusions, was even more solid than before. In the next moment, the illusory space had already enveloped Qi Feng. Subsequently, under the dumbstruck gazes of the surrounding spectators, Duanling Tian, who still had blood flowing out from the corners of his mouth, flashed to arrive by Qi Feng's side. Under the circumstances that Qi Feng didn't react in time, Duanling Tian slapped out with his palm and heavily injured Qi Feng. The illusory space shattered into pieces right after. Ah! Qi Feng's countenance went ghastly pale as his body shook, and then he spat out a mouthful of blood. When he saw Duanling Tian, who stood nearby, a wisp of bitterness suffused his face. You've broken through? Yes. Duanling Tian nodded indifferently. It was because Qi Feng had clearly explained the sequence of events to him earlier, otherwise he would absolutely not have held back earlier. As for the 2 arrows Qi Feng shot out without holding back in the slightest, Duanling Tian didn't blame him. A person like Qi Feng either didn't make a move, or once he made a move he would use his full strength. Perhaps in his mind, there was no such thing as mercy. Moreover, Qi Feng had once advised him to admit defeat, yet it was he himself who didn't admit defeat and asked Qi Feng to make a move. It could be said that even if he died this time, it would be because of his own arrogance and conceit, and he wouldn't die at Qi Feng's hands because Qi Feng had already said clearly that he didn't want to kill him. It was he who forced Qi Feng to make a move. Fortunately, he made the right bet and didn't die. You had the intention of relying on my strength to break through since the beginning? Qi Feng took a deep breath and asked once more. You're very smart. Duanling Tian smiled indifferently, and then he soared up into the sky and looked at Ning Qin, who had a livid expression as he said in a clear voice, Vice Fort Master Ning, thank you. If it wasn't for you asking Qi Feng to temper me, I wouldn't be able to complete my breakthrough so quickly. Duanling Tian especially emphasized the words temper. Ning Qin grunted coldly as he was naturally able to discern the ridicule in Duanling Tian's words. He'd never imagined that he originally wanted Qi Feng to kill Duanling Tian, yet never had he imagined that it would instead help Duanling Tian and allow Duanling Tian to complete his breakthrough at the most critical moment. When he recalled the way Duanling Tian raised his hand to shatter the arrow shot out by Qi Feng, he was still unable to wrap his head around it until now. Even if Duanling Tian has broken through, he seems to be only at the 3rd level of the Void Interpretation stage, right? What did a 3rd level Void Interpretation stage martial artist rely on to shatter the arrow shot out by Qi Feng? He didn't doubt that Qi Feng had shown mercy because the arrow shot out by Qi Feng had 151 ancient horned dragon silhouettes accompanying it. That was Qi Feng's full strength. Looks like Duanling Tian still has many secrets. Duanling Tian muttered to himself. Ning Qin thought in his heart. After he ridiculed Ning Qin, Duanling Tian glanced at Feng Wei, who had an unsightly expression, and then he looked at the nearby Zishang and said via voice transmission, Zishang, you're surely extremely disappointed now, right? Zishang's face sank when he heard Duanling Tian, and he bluntly replied via voice transmission. Duanling Tian, don't be complacent. Even if you're able to survive Qi Feng, you're bound to not live for long. Then we'll see. Let's see who lives longer. Duanling Tian glanced deeply at Zishang before returning to the side of Feng Tianwu and the others. Tianwu, Uncle Feng, Suli, Big Brother Zhang. I'm sorry I made all of you worry. Duanling Tian looked apologetically at the 4 people before him. Actually, the voice transmissions that the 4 of them didn't stop earlier had been heard by him, and it wasn't that he didn't hear it. But because he was in a tense state at that time, he was utterly unable to reply to the 4 of them. Duanling, and you really terrified all of us. Suli shook his head and laughed bitterly, and then he said, next time, tell us in advance if you want to take a risk so that we can be mentally prepared. You didn't see it earlier, young Miss Tianwu, humph? Feng Tianwu grunted coldly and interrupted Suli, and then she looked at Duanling Tian and asked with concern. Elder brother Duan, are you all right? I'm fine, I've only suffered some light injuries. Duanling Tian shook his head. The injuries to the meridians and internal organs in his body had almost recovered after he consumed the healing medicinal pill earlier. That sword strike of his from before wasn't simple at all. In the distant sky, Hui Ming, who stared at Duanling Tian from afar, said with a serious expression, that sword strike was actually capable of going head-to-head with the arrow Qi Feng shot out, and it indicated that it at least contained the strength of around 150 ancient horned dragons. The strength of 150 ancient horned dragons? Hui Jing was surprised. Is this possible? Even if Duan Lingtian has broken through, he's only broken through to the third level of the void interpretation stage. How could he possibly possess such a formidable strength? Perhaps this is the strength of a variant. Hui Ming continued. It can only be explained like this. Hui Jing nodded. Duan Lingtian, you really didn't disappoint me. I really look forward to the battle with you in the near future. Chapter 830. I'll accompany you until the end. After Duan Lingtian received the little monk's reply, he replied unhurriedly. Earlier, Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid in the slightest when facing the little monk's challenge. Now, Duan Lingtian, who'd successively broken through 2 levels and had a great increase in strength, was naturally even more unafraid. It was even to the extent that so long as this little monk wasn't an inscription master, then merely relying on his cultivation at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage was utterly incapable of resisting the soul's skill, 1,000 illusions, that he executed now. Unless the little monk had consumed a special spirit fruit that was capable of improving the soul, or in other words, spiritual force. So long as the little monk's spiritual force was at the 6th level of the void interpretation stage, and so long as the little monk wasn't an inscription master, then once the little monk fell into the illusory space constructed by his soul skill, the little monk would be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered before him. Duan Lingtian, congratulations. After Sword 13 and Saber 5 nodded and smiled to Duan Lingtian, they soared into the sky and gathered together with the 2 vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort, the 2 middle-aged monks of Empyrean Temple, and the sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Payan. The higher-ups of the 4 great powers of the foreign lands were gathered together. I originally thought that Duan Lingtian was about to lose, yet who knew that things would turn around and he would actually defeat Qi Feng and obtain the first in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Someone couldn't help but exclaim with shock. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian had become the center of attention as well. The first in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. What sort of honor was this? Zhang Yan, I truly never imagined that I would be able to see you here. Nor did I imagine that you'd actually join the emotion-severing sect that isn't inferior to Skywolf Fort and even become the personal disciple of the sect master of the emotion-severing sect. Duan Lingtian flew up to arrive by the side of Zhang Yan, who stood alone in the sky, and he took the initiative to greet Zhang Yan. All those years ago, even though there was some conflict between him and Zhang Yan, it couldn't be considered to be a deep enmity. Since people from the same imperial kingdom were able to meet in the foreign lands, it was sufficient to show their fate. You're not bad as well. You were able to successively break through 2 levels under such dangerous circumstances and break through to the 4th level of the void interpretation stage in one go. Moreover, the sword you used to shatter Qi Feng's arrow isn't simple, is it? Zhang Yan stared deeply at Duan Lingtian, his face still expressionless. The smile on Duan Lingtian's face completely froze when Zhang Yan was halfway through his words. He only recovered after a long while. He took a deep breath and asked, "Was it your master who saw through it?" Zhang Yan nodded. "Looks like your master is only half a step away from the martial monarch stage." Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly. He never imagined that Zhang Yan's master would be so abnormal. Not only was he able to discern that he had broken through to the 4th level of the void interpretation stage when the heaven and earth phenomenon had yet to take form, he was even able to discern that the sword he used at that time was not simple. The sword he used at that time was the quasi-royal grade spirit sword. Naturally, it was not simple. You can even see that? It was rare for Zhang Yan's stern face to be moved. This isn't difficult to guess. Duan Lingtian shook his head. His mind had fused with the memories of Samsara Emperor Wu's 2 lifetimes, so it wasn't difficult to deduce and guess some things. Even a 9th level void transformation stage martial artist like Sword 13 was unable to discern the cultivation he revealed under the circumstances that the heaven and earth phenomenon hadn't taken form. Only an expert that was half a step into the martial monarch stage or an expert that had stepped into the martial monarch stage or above would be able to discern it. It was obviously impossible for Zhang Yan's master to be at the martial monarch stage. If Zhang Yan's master was at the martial monarch stage, then once he made an appearance, no matter if it was the 2 great vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort or the Blade Sect Sword 13 and Saber 5, they would probably not dare speak loudly before him. Moreover, Skywolf Fort and Blade Sect were only 3rd-rate powers in the foreign lands. Since the emotion-severing sect was together with these 2 sects, then it would presumably not be strong and would surely be a 3rd-rate power as well. There were no martial monarch stage experts in the foreign lands' 3rd-rate powers. A power that possessed a martial monarch stage expert, even if it was only a martial monarch stage expert, could be considered to be a second-rate power in the foreign lands, and it was far from something a third-rate power could compare to. It could be said that a martial monarch stage expert was sufficient to sweep through an entire third-rate power. The strength of a martial monarch stage expert was obvious. Zhang Yan, why did you go to the emotion-severing sect? I heard from Senior Sword that your emotion-severing sect isn't an ordinary sect, and only people that have severed their emotions are able to do well there. Duan Lingtian asked curiously. You seem to be doing well there, and you've even become the personal disciple of the emotion-severing sect's master. Could it be that you've severed your emotions as well? Didn't you like Ziyan? Even though it had been a few years, Duan Lingtian clearly remembered Zhang Yan's persistence towards Ziyan all those years ago. I'm me, she's her, and I don't have any relationship with her anymore. Zhang Yan spoke indifferently, and his tone didn't contain any emotions. What? Zhang Yan's reaction caused Duan Lingtian to be extremely surprised. Zhang Yan, could it be that something has happened between the two of you? Even until now, I still remember. You stood up for her when we fought for the first time all those years ago. After that, you went against me at every turn because of her as well. If you've come to look for me for the sake of discussing her, then you should return. If you've come to catch up with me, then I welcome you. Zhang Yan continued. Looks like you've really changed. Duan Lingtian shook his head and sighed. He still remembered that Zhang Yan had looked at him with a hostile gaze all those years ago, and especially before Ziyan, Zhang Yan wished for nothing more than to slice him into pieces. But now, even though Zhang Yan couldn't be considered to be friendly to him, he didn't reject him like he did in the past. No matter what, I have to congratulate you for having such good fortune. As members of the Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom as well, being able to meet in the foreign lands can be considered to be fate. Duan Lingtian smiled lightly as he spoke. Zhang Yan didn't have any hostility towards him, so he naturally wouldn't bear a grudge over the little conflict from all those years ago. He'd always been one that didn't offend others if they didn't offend him. In this world, having another friend was better than having another enemy. Thank you. Even though Zhang Yan still had an expressionless face, yet a trace of bright light flashed past his eyes, and he'd obviously approved of Duan Lingtian's words. In the distance, the higher-ups of Skywolf Fort, Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion-Severing Sect were gathered together. Sword 13 Hui Ming Payan. I know the objective of all of you coming here this time is none other than the intention of sharing a share of the profits with my Skywolf Fort. Since all of you have come, my Skywolf Fort will naturally not monopolize the profits. Ninkan went straight to the point. But all of you must contribute a portion of the rewards distributed to the young geniuses ranked in the top 10 of the dynasties during the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time. Of course. Sword 13 nodded and was the first to agree. I have no objections. Hui Ming pressed his palms together as he spoke. All right. Pei Yan had an expressionless face as he replied indifferently. Not long after, the higher-ups of the 4 great powers of the foreign lands gathered the various rewards for the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, whereas Ning Kan's expression eased up slightly. In this way his Skywolf Fort wouldn't suffer a loss. Subsequently, it was the distribution of the rewards. 5 young geniuses from the Darkhan dynasty are ranked in the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, and they'll be able to obtain 10 concept fragments, 10 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 10 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. The Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, Ning Kan, who stood at the center of the sky above the combat arena and had become the center of attention, spoke out slowly. Thank you, Vice Fort Master Ning. After the Darkhan dynasty's emperor received his rewards, he hurriedly thanked Ning Kan with a smile on his face. On the other hand, the representatives of the other 9 dynasties revealed envious expressions as they looked at the Darkhan dynasty's emperor, and some of their eyes even revealed greed and killing intent. Obviously they had ill intentions. Besides that, the representatives of the Darqi dynasty, Darqing dynasty, Daryuan dynasty, Darchu dynasty, and Darqing dynasty will each obtain 2 concept fragments, 2 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 2 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. Ning Kan continued announcing and gave out the rewards at the same time. Thank you, Vice Fort Master Ning. The representatives of the 5 dynasties hurriedly expressed their gratitude. In the end, the remaining representatives of the 4 dynasties will each obtain a grade 3 spirit weapon and a bottle of grade 3 life recovery pills. Ning Kan continued. Obviously this was a consolation prize and there wasn't even a concept fragment. Even though the expressions of the representatives of the 4 dynasties were extremely unsightly, they still gratefully accepted it. The dynasties behind them had worked hard for so long and even sacrificed many young geniuses, yet they only obtained this little bit of rewards and didn't even obtain a concept fragment, so how could they be happy? Even if it was only a single concept fragment, it was sufficient to represent a future void transformation stage expert. So, the value of a concept fragment wasn't something spirit weapons and medicinal pills could compare to. After the rewards of the various dynasties were distributed, Ning Kan's voice sounded out once more. Now, I invite the young geniuses ranked in the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties to come over. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Instantly, the 10 people including Duan Lingtian soared into the sky and surrounded Ning Kan. The first in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties will be able to obtain 3 4th level concept fragments, 10 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 10 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. Ning Kan passed over the spatial ring that contained the rewards to Duan Lingtian. Thank you, Vice Fort Master Ning. Duan Lingtian grinned and completely disregarded the coldness that was contained in the depths of Ning Kan's gaze when he looked at him. For a time, Duan Lingtian had once again become the center of attention. 3 4th level concept fragments? Even if it was the representatives of those dynasties, including the Darkhan dynasty's emperor, all of their eyes had gone completely red. After all, the concept fragments obtained by the representatives of the various dynasties were only 1st level concept fragments, and they were utterly unable to compare with 4th level concept fragments. Duan Lingtian had obtained 3 concept fragments in one go, so how could they not be envious? If they were to find out that Duan Lingtian didn't care much about these rewards, they would probably be angered to the point of spitting blood. In reality, Duan Lingtian really didn't care much about the rewards he just obtained, and he casually tossed the spatial ring that stored the rewards into his own spatial ring without the slightest intention of opening it to take a look. Duan Lingtian's rewards were the best. The second in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, Zi Decease, only possessed 2 4th level concept fragments, 9 grade 3 spirit weapons, and 9 bottles of grade 3 life recovery pills. Chapter 831. The rewards of the people at the bottom were even worse. Grade 3 spirit weapons and grade 3 life recovery pills were gradually reduced according to their rankings. When it came to the 10th place, Zhang Shouyong, he only obtained a grade 3 spirit weapon and a bottle of grade 3 life recovery pills. As for concept fragments, the 4th to 6th place respectively obtained 3, 2 and 1/3 level concept fragments. The 7th to 9th place respectively obtained 3, 2 and 1/2 level concept fragments. The 10th place, Zhang Shouyong, obtained 3 1st level concept fragments. Even then Zhang Shouyong was still overjoyed. Because amongst the 3 1st level concept fragments he obtained, there just happened to be an earth concept fragment. Duan Lingtian sighed when he saw Zhang Shouyong's brilliant smile, and then he casually withdrew the spatial ring he obtained earlier and withdrew the 3 4th level concept fragments within it. I wonder if there are any earth concept fragments. Duan Lingtian thought in his heart. The facts proved that Duan Lingtian's luck wasn't bad, and amongst the 3 4th level concept fragments, there just happened to be an earth concept fragment. Big Brother Zhang. Duan Lingtian withdrew the 4th level earth concept fragment and passed it to Zhang Shouyong. Brother Lingtian, you've comprehended earth concept as well, keep it for yourself. Zhang Shouyong's eyes revealed a trace of gratitude as he shook his head and refused Duan Lingtian's good intentions. Big Brother Zhang, I have an earth concept fragment of an even higher level. Duan Lingtian spoke via voice transmission. When he was in the Sword Monarch's treasure that day, he'd obtained a 7th level earth concept fragment. So unless it was an earth concept fragment at the 8th level or above, otherwise he wasn't interested. After he persuaded Zhang Shouyong put away the 4th level earth concept fragment. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian gave the 4th level fire concept fragment to Feng Tianwu. Su Li had no use for the last 4th level water concept fragment, so he casually tossed it back into his spatial ring. After all the rewards were distributed, most people were immersed in happiness, and it was only when Ning Kan spoke once more that the entire scene went silent. Representatives of the 10 dynasties, young geniuses of the 10 dynasties. The rewards distributed earlier are only the rewards of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Ning Kan's voice clearly entered into the ears of everyone present. Only the rewards of the martial competition? Ning Kan's words caused many dynasty representatives and young geniuses to have bewildered expressions as they didn't know what Ning Kan meant, yet all of them still looked at Ning Kan with anticipation. They were able to discern that Ning Kan's words, "Today, our Skywolf Fort is recruiting disciples. All young geniuses at the Void Interpretation stage and above in the 10 dynasties can join our Skywolf Fort." Ning Kan said with a loud voice, "Once all of you join our Skywolf Fort will bestow some concept fragments, spirit weapons and medicinal pills to all of you. Can't be to the dynasty to the can't dynasty?" As soon as Ning Kan finished speaking, many young geniuses present were tempted. After going through the various selections of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, practically every single one of the young geniuses of the 10 dynasties that were still able to stand here was in existence at the Void Interpretation stage or above. In other words, every single one of them was able to join the Skywolf Fort and become a disciple of the Skywolf Fort. Our Blade sect similarly welcomes everyone to join. Meanwhile, Sword 13 spoke as well, and then he added, "What we can give won't be less than the Skywolf Fort." Instantly, even more people were tempted. The Blade sect was a formidable power of the foreign lands that wasn't inferior to the Skywolf Fort, and the domineering aura Sword 13 revealed earlier caused them to feel rather reverence and yearning. Buddha be praised. The middle-aged monk, Shang Huiming, stood out as well and said with a loud voice, "The Empyrean Temple has opened its doors and sincerely invites all the young and male geniuses to join. Will surely not treat everyone unfairly." As soon as the monk spoke, the group of young geniuses went silent. After a short moment, a young man couldn't refrain himself from asking, "Monk, I heard that not only does your Empyrean Temple have to shave one's head, abstain from eating meat and abstain from sex. Is it really like this?" Instantly the group of young men looked over. If it was really like this, then what was the point of living? No matter how great the benefits were, they would surely be unwilling to go. Buddha be praised, everyone, you've misunderstood. Hui Ming laughed bitterly. Our Empyrean Temple is divided into inner disciples and secular disciples. Secular disciples don't have these rules. That's fine. Hui Ming's reply caused many young men to heave a sigh of relief. The emotion-severing sect welcomes everyone to join. The sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Payan, spoke out as well, and he had an expressionless face as he spoke in a cool manner. The 4 great powers of the foreign lands were recruiting disciples at the same time, and it caused many young geniuses to be slightly unable to make a choice. Of course, there were also some that made a choice. For example, Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu and Zhang Shouyong stood by Sword 13's side, and they obviously intended to head to the Blade sect with Sword 13. On the other hand, Zi Shang instead followed by Ning Kan's side. As Ning Kan's personal disciple, he naturally joined the Skywolf Fort. Duan Lingtian and Zi Shang were the first and second respectively in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, and they both had their own places to belong to. For a time, the third, Qi Feng, had become the target of competition between the 4 great powers. Qi Feng, the emotion-severing sect, welcomes you to join. The sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Payan, was the first to extend an invitation. Qi Feng, our Blade sect, welcomes you to join as well. Sword 13 extended an invitation as well. He'd clearly seen Qi Feng's ability earlier, and that archery skill was truly extraordinary. Most importantly, Qi Feng's calmness, patience and decisiveness displayed his value even more. Buddha be praised. The Empyrean Temple welcomes benefactor Qi Feng to join. Hui Ming wasn't willing to fall behind. "Qi Feng, if you don't join my Skywolf Fort, then I'll send people to annihilate your entire sect." Feng Wei, who'd threatened Qi Feng once more via voice transmission. As far as he was concerned, since Qi Feng had given in once, then Qi Feng would surely give in this time. "You want to annihilate my entire sect if I don't join Skywolf Fort? Vice Fort Master Feng Wei, are you inviting me? Or are you threatening me?" But unfortunately, Qi Feng didn't choose to swallow his anger this time, and he looked at Feng Wei instead as he spoke with a low voice. Whoosh. As soon as Qi Feng said this, the entire scene was in an uproar. Feng Wei, the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, actually threatened Qi Feng like this for the sake of making Qi Feng join? For a time, the representatives and young geniuses of the 10 dynasties frowned. Since Feng Wei was able to threaten Qi Feng, then did it mean that he could threaten them as well? "Qi Feng, you don't make slanderous accusations." Feng Wei's face went grim as he'd never imagined that Qi Feng would actually shed all pretenses and repeat the words he'd threatened him with. Moreover, Qi Feng had said it loudly in public. Slanderous accusations? Qi Feng glanced indifferently at Feng Wei and grunted coldly, and then he looked at the sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Payan, and his expression eased up as he asked respectfully. Sect Master Pei, if I join the emotion-severing sect, will the emotion-severing sect be able to protect the safety of my friends and family? As soon as Qi Feng said this, Ning Can and Feng Wei's expressions went grim. Duan Lingtian smiled indifferently. He never imagined that Qi Feng would be so audacious to actually dare make a fool out of Skywolf Fort like this. When Qi Feng said this, it practically confirmed the fact that Skywolf Fort was threatening him. This time, Skywolf Fort was unable to clear its name even if it jumped into the Yellow River. Just as Duan Lingtian had thought, when the representatives and young geniuses of the 10 dynasties looked at Ning Can and Feng Wei, the vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort, their eyes contained slight rejection mixed within. Feng Wei, look what you've done. Ning Can's voice transmission pierced into Feng Wei's ears and he cursed. Just because of your threat to Qi Feng, our Skywolf Fort might be completely working for the 3 great powers this time. Feng Wei's expression became even gloomier when he was cursed by Ning Can like this. Of course he didn't dare vent his feelings on Ning Can. His eyes were filled with cold lights as his gaze locked tightly onto Qi Feng. Of course. Pei didn't hesitate in the slightest when faced with Qi Feng's question and nodded lightly, and then he said with an expressionless face, if you're willing to join my emotion-severing sect, then I can put it down right now. Touching your friends and family is going against me, Pei. Pei making such a promise caused Sword 13 and Hui Ming to be unable to help but shake their heads and sigh. They knew that Qi Feng and the others had no chance. Instantly, their gazes moved onto Qin Kong that was ranked 4th in the martial competition. But unfortunately they didn't have the chance to speak when Qin Kong had already said, I'll go wherever Qi Feng goes. Sword 13 and Hui Ming instantly laughed bitterly. Sect Master Pei, I'm willing to join your emotion-severing sect. When Qi Feng heard Pei's promise, he agreed right away to join the emotion-severing sect. All right. Pei nodded, and a rare wisp of a faint smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Welcome. Obviously he'd heard Qin Kong's words as well. For a time, the 3rd and 4th had both joined the emotion-severing sect. Tamu, our Skywolf Fort invites you to join. Ning Can looked at Tamu that was ranked 5th in the martial competition this time, and he issued an invitation. Tamu grunted and then he grinned and said, are all of you going to head to the Daryuan dynasty to kill my family as well if I fucking refuse? If it's so, then I'm truly sorry, I'm an orphan. Ning Can was slightly embarrassed when he heard this and he hurriedly said, of course not. You surely said no because you heard me say I'm an orphan. Tamu had an expression that said, don't try to deceive me. Ning Can's face sank, and then he glared fiercely once more at Feng Wei who was by his side. If it wasn't for Feng Wei threatening Qi Feng earlier and ruining the reputation of Skywolf Fort, how could he possibly be in such a passive state? Moreover, I'll go wherever my master goes. As Tamu spoke, his eyes glowed as he looked at Duan Lingtian. I want to join the Blade Sect. The Blade Sect welcomes you. Sword 13 started smiling as he never imagined that Duan Lingtian's existence would even help him pull Tamu over. Chapter 832. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but frown when he heard Tamu's words. But for the sake of not making things difficult for Sword 13, he didn't say anything in the end. I'll join Skywolf Fort. A clear and cold voice sounded out, and it was the Darqing dynasty's Yi Ling who took the initiative to speak. She seemed to completely not care about Feng Wei's threat to Qi Feng from before, or perhaps she didn't believe Qi Feng's confident words from before. Yi Ling's thoughts were extremely simple. Besides the Skywolf Fort that only had Zishang, the Blade Sect and Emotion-Severing Sect had a few young geniuses that were more outstanding than her, so she wouldn't be put in an important position even if she went. So she chose Skywolf Fort. Skywolf Fort welcomes you. Ning Can laughed heartily as he never imagined that there would be someone that would take the initiative to request to join Skywolf Fort under such circumstances. After all, the reputation of the Skywolf Fort had already been ruined by Feng Duan. I'll join the Empyrean Temple. Qin, who was ranked at the 9th position in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, had more or less recovered from his injuries now, and he spoke out. His thoughts were similar to Yi Ling's. Up until now, the Empyrean Temple hadn't accepted a single person that was ranked in the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, so if he went, he would surely be valued. Meanwhile, the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties had been completely divided up. The Blade Sect was undoubtedly the biggest winner. Duan Lingtian, Tamu, Su Li, Feng Tianwu and Zhang Shouyong. 5 of the top 10 of the martial competition of the 10 dynasties had been obtained. Even though the emotion-severing sect was similar to Skywolf Fort and only obtained 2, the 2 young geniuses it obtained were existences that were ranked at the 3rd and 4th position in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties, and their strengths were extraordinary. Qifeng Qin Kong. Skywolf Fort obtained 2. Zishang Yiling Empyrean Temple only obtained 1. Wuxia. In next to no time, the remaining young geniuses had successively chosen their factions. Perhaps it was because they were reminded by Yi Ling and O Chen's choices, but even more people chose to join the Empyrean Temple and Skywolf Fort. This caused the 2 vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort to smile widely. Amitba. Amitba. Hui Ming's face was also full of smiles. However, the 2 vice sect leaders of the Blade sect, Jian Shursan and Saber 5, as well as the sect leader of the emotion-severing sect, Payan, were not unhappy because of this. In their opinion, what was the point of having so many people? Quality was king. In next to no time, brilliant smiles appeared on the faces of the representatives of the 10 dynasties because they'd more or less received a great gift from the 4 great sections. Giving them a big gift was mainly to thank their respective dynasties for nurturing this group of young talents. Everyone, this matter is over. My emotion-severing sect will leave first. Payan greeted indifferently before leaving with Zhang Yan and the other young geniuses. Amitba. It's time for this poor monk to return. Huiming, Huijing and the young monk came and more than 10 people left. It's time for our Blade sect to leave as well. Jian Shursan glanced at Ning Kan and Feng Wei before indifferently greeting the 2 of them, and then he led Duanling Tian and the others to soar into the sky and head out of Skywolf Fort. Before leaving, Duanling Tian noticed a gloomy gaze sweeping over, and he couldn't help but turn around to look. Zishang. The corners of Duanling Tian's mouth curled into a wisp of a cold smile as he looked at the owner of this gaze. Duanling Tian, I've said it before, you won't live for long. Zishang's voice transmission clearly entered into Duanling Tian's ears, and it was filled with ruthlessness. Idiot. Duanling Tian replied calmly via voice transmission, and then he followed Jian Shursan and the others to leave Skywolf Fort together. Idiot? Zishang's expression was livid, and in the end he gritted his teeth fiercely before looking at Ning Ken, who was communicating with the other young geniuses. Master, I want to tell you something. Duanling Tian has a treasure in his possession. That treasure is a saint artifact that surpasses spirit artifacts, and it's capable of providing an amplification of an entire 2 times. Zishang had thrown caution to the wind now, and in his heart, he was only thinking about how to kill Duanling Tian. As for anything else, he didn't think about it for now. What? Ning Kan's pupils constricted when he heard Zishang's voice transmission, and then he looked at Zishang and said with a low voice, "Come with me." After a short moment, both of them arrived at an empty place. Is what you said true? Ning Kan asked with a low voice. Yes. Zishang nodded. Then why didn't you say so earlier? Ning Kan asked again, and his tone contained slight reproach. I originally thought that Qifeng would be able to kill him, and then I would think of a way to obtain his spatial ring after Qifeng killed him. Zishang took a deep breath as he spoke. You want to take possession of that saint artifact? Ning Kan's eyes flickered with bright lights as his fierce gaze descended onto Zishang, and it seemed as if it could penetrate through Zishang. Yes. Zishang gritted his teeth and nodded before admitting it. I'll deal with you later. Ning Kan grunted coldly and left directly. But based on his tone, he didn't have the slightest intention of blaming Zishang. If Zishang was in Zishang's shoes, he wouldn't easily tell others about the saint artifact as well. A saint artifact that provides an amplification of 100%. If the fort master is able to obtain it, then he'll be able to easily defeat those 2 old fellows from the Blade sect, that old baldy from the Empyrean Temple, the old sect master of the emotion-severing sect, and the current sect master, Payan. After Ning Kan and Zishang parted ways, they headed directly to the inner fort. This was a great matter that had a profound effect on Skywolf Fort, and it couldn't be neglected. Duanlingdan, let me see how you die this time. A wisp of an evil sneer appeared on the corners of Zishang's mouth when he saw Ning Kan leave, and he seemed as if he'd already seen the scenes of Duanling Tian being killed by the experts of Skywolf Fort. On the other side, after Duanling Tian's group left ancient desert city, they headed all the way towards the northeast. The Blade sect was in that direction. Our Blade sect is divided into the House of Sabers and House of Swords. The master of the House of Sabers is the master of my senior brother Dao, and the master of the House of Swords is my martial uncle. Jian Shursan introduced the Blade sect to Duanling Tian and the others. He'd obtained a great harvest from this trip, and he was in an extremely good mood. Tamu, how about coming to the House of Sabers with me? Suddenly, Saber 5 arrived by Tamu's side and spoke to Tamu. I'll go wherever Master goes. Tamu didn't even think before speaking directly. I'll give you the best cultivation environment, how about it? I'll go wherever Master goes. I'll satisfy all your requests, how about it? I'll go wherever Master goes. Can you say something else? I'll go wherever Master goes. In the end, Saber 5 was completely speechless. In the end, he could only place his gaze onto Duan Lingtian. Kid Lingtian, let this disciple of yours join our House of Sabers. How about it? As far as he was concerned, Duan Lingtian was skilled in the sword, and coupled with his junior brother Jian would surely not let Tamu go. He'd never thought of pulling Duan Lingtian into the House of Sabers. He only hoped to be able to persuade Duan Lingtian and make Duan Lingtian order Tamu to join the House of Sabers. As far as he was concerned, once Duan Lingtian gave the order, then Tamu would absolutely not refuse. He's not my disciple. Duan Lingtian frowned and spoke resolutely. Kid Lingtian, what benefits do you want? Speak frankly. In any case, my House of Sabers is taking Tamu for sure. He's not my disciple. Kid Lingtian, how about this? He's not my disciple. Can you not interrupt me? Wait for me to speak. He's not my disciple. After a round of this, Saber 5 was completely convinced, and he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. It's truly an enormous waste that the two of you aren't master and disciple. You think so as well? When he heard Saber 5, the eyes of Tamu, who'd always been silently following by Duan Lingtian's side, lit up, and he seemed to have found a common topic with Saber 5. Yes, I do think so. Saber 5's eyes lit up. There seems to be hope. Not bad, not bad. Your judgment isn't bad. Tamu praised. Since you said my judgment isn't bad, then I'll let you join the House of Sabers. You? Saber 5 seized the opportunity, but he hadn't finished speaking when he was interrupted by Tamu. I'll go wherever Master goes. For a time, Saber 5 was completely convinced, and he completely lost his temper. Feng Qianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyong, who stood on the other side of Duan Lingtian, couldn't help but laugh when they saw this scene. As far as they were concerned, Tamu was simply a clown. Tamu. Duan Lingtian, who'd never paid any attention to Tamu, looked seriously at Tamu for the first time. Master, what instructions do you have? Tamu looked respectfully and reverently at Duan Lingtian. I've already said that I'm not your master. Besides that, I want to tell you that I'm unable to teach you what you want to learn from me because it's a technique that can't be copied. Duan Lingtian spoke with a serious expression, and his words came from the bottom of his heart. Don't worry, Master, once I learn it, I'll absolutely not teach it to a third person. Tamu vowed solemnly, and his words obviously didn't take Duan Lingtian's words seriously, causing Duan Lingtian to be speechless once more. Did you not hear what I said clearly? Duan Lingtian frowned and spoke with slight impatience. Master, I know you reject me now and don't want to pass that technique down to me, but I believe that I'll be able to move you with my sincerity one day. Tamu spoke in all seriousness. You think I'm lying to you? Duan Lingtian could be considered to have come to an understanding now, and it turned out that Tamu hadn't believed him since the beginning. Tamu doesn't dare. Tamu heard that Duan Lingtian's tone was off, and he hurriedly lowered his head like an aggrieved child. Forget it, I can't be bothered to pay attention to you. Duan Lingtian had completely lost his temper. This Tamu was simply a piece of rotten wood, and it was a strange piece of rotten wood that couldn't withstand any carving. Master, I'll surely do my duty as a disciple. Tamu spoke seriously. Duan Lingtian paid no further attention to him and instead looked at Su Li as he scolded with a smile. Su Li, when did you comprehend intermediate water concept? You've concealed it too deeply, right? In the past, I thought you'd comprehended sword concept. I haven't used it for a long time and I've almost forgotten it. It just so happened that I encountered layer upon layer of pressure during the martial competition of the 10 dynasties this time, and I recalled it, so I used it. Su Li smiled as he spoke. Do you think I would believe you? Chapter 833. Tamu, do you believe it? Su Li smiled faintly and then he looked at Tamu and asked. If Master believes it, I'll believe it. If Master doesn't believe it, I won't believe it. Tamu didn't hesitate in the slightest and replied resolutely. How obedient. Duan Lingtian, why don't you accept this disciple? I think he's pretty good. Su Li looked at Duan Lingtian and smiled. Thank you, Uncle Master, for interceding for Ta Mu. Ta Mu hurriedly bowed and thanked Su Li, and these words came from the bottom of his heart and were exceedingly sincere. If you want to take it yourself. Anyway, I have nothing to teach him, and I'm not interested in accepting such a disciple. After glaring at Su Li, Duan Lingtian snappily said. Su Li smiled bitterly and didn't say anything else. Big brother Zhang, sister-in-law, is still in the Darkhan dynasty. What do you plan to do in the future? Are you going to bring her out or are you going back? Duan Lingtian asked Zhang Shouyong. Zhang Shouyong was not alone. He still had his wife, Wang Qiong, in the Darkhan dynasty's Zhang clan. When they were in the Darkhan dynasty, Zhang Shouyong and his wife were inseparable. This time, Zhang Shouyong didn't bring her along when he left the Darkhan dynasty to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties in the foreign lands. After a while, you'll come with me and bring her out. When he heard Duan Lingtian mention Wang Qiong, Zhang Shouyong's face was filled with gentleness as he spoke with a light smile. All right. Duan Lingtian nodded with a smile. In his heart, Brother Zhang had always been the same Brother Zhang who had saved his life and helped him a lot. Perhaps his current strength had temporarily surpassed Big Brother Zhang's, but as long as Big Brother Zhang had something to do and needed it, he would definitely not shirk his responsibility. Even if he had to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire. When the time comes, I'll go back with you. Feng Qianwu said. Ah, of course I'm bringing you along. Zhang Shouyong smiled. If all of you want to return to the Darkhan dynasty, I'll send a few elders to travel with all of you. This foreign lands is different from your Darkhan dynasty, and it's filled with danger everywhere. Jian Shisan heard the conversation between Duan Lingtian and the other two and said with a smile. Thank you, senior. Duan Lingtian hurriedly thanked him. He knew that this was the special treatment that Sword 13 had given them, and it was a treatment that ordinary Blade School disciples would not be able to enjoy. However, if you really want to go back, I'm afraid you'll have to wait a year. Jian Shisan added. Understood. Duan Lingtian nodded. He was already mentally prepared for this, so he was not surprised. Early on when he was still at Skywolf Fort, he'd faintly guessed some things from Sword 13's words, and it was related to this secret vault, left behind by Emperor Wu. Moreover, there was a special inscription formation set up in the secret treasure. Only people below the age of 40 could enter it. In addition, there were many precious treasures in the secret treasure. Nonsense. If there were no precious treasures in it, why would the 4 extraterrestrial forces, Skywolf Fort, Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion Severing Sect, spend so much effort on it? Not to mention anything else, just the soul fragments that the 4 great powers had paid for the representatives and young geniuses of the 10 dynasties were already extremely valuable. As far as Duan Lingtian was concerned, the 4 great powers would absolutely not do a business that would suffer a loss. They'd surely received specific information about the secret vault, left behind by Emperor Wu beforehand, and they knew that the thing they wanted was within it. But Duan Lingtian not being surprised didn't mean that Feng Qianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyong weren't surprised. After they discerned that Duan Lingtian seemed to know something that they didn't, the 3 of them couldn't help but ask curiously via voice transmission. Elder brother Duan, why do we have to return a year from now? Duan Lingtian, when you said you understood earlier, you seem to know why we have to return a year from now? Brother Lingtian, what exactly is going on? Duan Lingtian didn't intentionally conceal it when faced with their questions, and he told them of his guesses. All of this was his own guess. From the beginning until the end, Sword 13 hadn't mentioned it to him. The secret vault, left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu? Only people below the age of 40 can enter it? There are precious treasures that the 4 great powers want to obtain within it? Skywolf Fort held the martial competition of the 10 dynasties for the sake of this secret vault, left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu? Feng Qianwu, Su Li, and Zhang Shouyong were shocked. Never had they imagined that so many things were hidden behind the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Earlier, they were rather puzzled as to why the 4 great powers had paid such a great price for the sake of seizing the group of young geniuses from the 10 dynasties. Now they came to a sudden understanding. It turned out that the 4 great powers wanted to utilize this group of young geniuses to search for the treasures they wanted in this secret vault, left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu. Looks like after we enter this secret vault, left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu, there'll be another open and veiled struggle. Su Li sighed via voice transmission. Duan Lingtian deeply agreed to this. After all, there were 4 great powers that knew of this secret vault, left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu. At that time they would surely send people in, and the people they sent in would surely fight for various treasures. Moreover, it might not only be the 4 great powers that knew of this secret vault, left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu, and there might be 5 great powers, 10 great powers, or even more powers. For a time, Duan Lingtian felt traces of heavy pressure. The size of the foreign lands was far from something the 10 dynasties could compare to. Not to mention those formidable powers at the second-rate or above, just third-rate powers like the Empyrean Temple and Emotion-Severing Sect were examples. Today, Duan Lingtian had seen 2 6th-level void interpretation stage martial artists below the age of 40, the Empyrean Temple's Little Monk and the Emotion-Severing Sect's Zhang Yan. Duan Lingtian believed that the Skywolf Fort and Blade Sect surely had a few young experts that were so outstanding. Feng Qianwu and Zhang Shouyong were slightly dazed, and they still hadn't recovered from their shock. To them, an expert like Emperor Wu that stood at the peak of Cloud Continent only existed in legends. Exactly how precious would the treasures within this secret vault, left behind by an expert like Emperor Wu be? It was difficult for them to imagine. Sword 13 who led the way ahead and Saber 5 who brought up the rear seemed to have noticed something, and their brows suddenly knit together. Subsequently, they seemed to have discussed it beforehand, and they squinted their eyes and looked over. Shit. Sword 13's face went grim. Saber 5's expression was extremely unsightly as well. In the distance, there were 3 figures flashing over swiftly like 3 black bolts of lightning, and they appeared within their field of vision in a short moment. The speed of these 3 people was so swift that it caused it to be difficult for Sword 13 and Saber 5 to arouse the thought of fleeing. If it was only the 2 of them, then perhaps they would be able to escape easily. But the problem was that it wasn't just the 2 of them now, and there was also Duan Lingtian and the other young geniuses that needed to be taken care of. It's Ning Can. In next to no time, Saber 5 shouted out coldly with an extremely gloomy expression. Ning Can, what's he doing here? Saber 5's cold shout caused Duan Lingtian, the group of young geniuses, and Feng Wu Dao to recover from their shock, and they stopped moving successively before looking at the 3 figures that were approaching from afar. One of them was precisely the familiar Ning Can, the vice fort master of Skywolf Fort. Besides Ning Can, there were 2 other old men. In terms of speed, one of the old men was actually slightly swifter than Ning Can, whereas the other old man's speed was equal to Ning Can Mengli Yukang. Sword 13 flew out to greet the 3 people that flashed over, and he looked at Ning Can's group of 3 as he said with a low voice, "All of you probably didn't catch up just to send us off, right? Sword 13, all of you can leave safely so long as you hand over Duan Lingtian." Ning Can went straight to the point and stated the reason he'd come. He only had a single objective in coming here, and it was to make Duan Lingtian stay. Duan Lingtian's face went slightly grim as he never imagined that Ning Can's group of 3 had caught up for him. Even though he'd never seen the other 2 old men, since they'd come with Ning Can, then he was able to discern their strength from the speed they revealed earlier. One of them was even stronger than Ning Can, and the other was on par with Ning Can. Thus, Duan Lingtian easily guessed the identities of the other 2 old men, and they ought to be the vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort. Skywolf Fort had a total of 5 vice fort masters. Ning Can and Feng Wei, who presided over the martial competition of the 10 dynasties that he'd seen at Skywolf Fort, were only 2 of them. Ning Can, are you joking? Sword 13 hadn't spoken when Saber 5 had already sneered. Duan Lingtian is a member of our Blade Sect now. If you want to touch him, then ask the saber in my hand first. As Saber 5 spoke, a thick and heavy wide saber appeared in his hand, and the wide saber emitted a peerlessly fierce aura that faintly contained traces of the smell of blood. Obviously, many souls had died beneath the saber, and it caused the saber to be tainted with dense blood. Sword 13, you mean this as well? The old man that was obviously stronger than Ning Can took a step forward and stared at Sword 13 with a burning gaze as he asked with a low voice. Mengli, what's the meaning of your Skywolf Fort doing this? Bullying my Blade Sect for having no one? Cold lights flickered within Sword 13's eyes as his body emitted piercingly cold sword insight, and along with this, killing intent that shot into the sky and was icy cold and bone-piercing. Mengli, the vice fort master of Skywolf Fort, his cultivation had stepped into the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage many years ago, and he was one of the 2 strongest people beneath the fort master of Skywolf Fort. The other person was the vice fort master of Skywolf Fort as well, and his cultivation was similar to Mengli. That person, Feng Wei, and the 3 people before him were the 5 great vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort. The last person that came with Mengli and Ning Can was called Yukang, and his strength was similar to Ningkan as both of them were existences at the 8th level of the void transformation stage. One was at the 9th level of the void transformation stage while the other two were at the 8th level of the void transformation stage. The three of them had chased over from Skywolf Fort with ill intent, and they'd come for the sake of Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, these three old fellows are chasing over like flies and it's actually because of you? Could it be that you've dug up their ancestral graves? Su Li looked at Ningkan's group of three and asked with slight shock. It would be fine if I dug up their ancestral graves, at least I know why they're looking for me. The problem is that I utterly don't know why they're targeting me. Chapter 834. It wasn't that Duan Lingtian hadn't thought that these three old men had come for Zishang, but when he thought about it, he felt it wasn't too realistic. The enmity between him and Zishang was a personal one. Even if Ningkan was Zishang's master, it was impossible for Ningkan to openly stand up for Zishang and make a move against him. Otherwise, Ningkan would become the greatest joke in the world. Not to mention calling over the other two vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort, and one of them was even a 9th level void transformation stage expert like Sword 13. Sword 13, our Skywolf Fort has always coexisted peacefully with your Blade sect. So long as you hand over this young man today, we'll leave right away. We'll even give a gift of thanks to the Blade sect in the future. Meng Li spoke with a low voice, and his words carried an intention of coercion. What if I don't hand it over? Sword 13's face sank. Then I can only be blunt. Cold lights flashed within Meng Li's eyes as he abruptly soared into the sky and shot directly toward Sword 13. I heard from Ningkan that you've already broken through to the 9th level of the void transformation stage. Today, allow me to experience the strength of the number 2 expert of the Sword sect. You'll see. Sword 13 wasn't afraid in the slightest as he moved forward to greet Meng Li, and his body emitted a fierce sword chi. At this instant, his entire body seemed to have transformed into a sword. The collision between Meng Li and Sword 13 was utterly impossible to see clearly in the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others, because their speeds were truly too swift. Bah, 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 bah. When the two of them collided, it caused the airflow in the sky to explode and give rise to waves of piercingly cold gales that caused the clothes of Duan Lingtian and the others to flutter with the wind. During the battle between Sword 13 and Meng Li, his figure would occasionally vanish into thin air before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others, and he would occasionally appear once more. Based on the state of the two of them, they seemed to be evenly matched. In the sky, an innumerable amount of ancient horned dragon silhouettes bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced out and fought together, and it seemed to be extremely horrifying. As expected of the publicly acknowledged genius of the House of Swords in the Blade sect. Sword 13, you've just stepped into the 9th level of the void transformation stage and are able to fight me equally. It was none other than the voice of the Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, Meng Li, shameless boasting. Sword 13's clear and cold voice sounded out, and in the next moment, everyone present felt an even fiercer aura rise up from Sword 13's body. In the next moment, there seemed to be many more ancient horned dragon silhouettes in the sky, and Sword 13's strength seemed to have obtained an enormous increase at this moment. Whoosh! The whistling of the sword that tore through the sky stopped abruptly. In the next moment, everyone including Duan Lingtian saw Sword 13 appear and stand proudly in the sky. In his hand was a meter-long blade that flowed with flowing lights, and it was dripping with dazzling and resplendent fresh blood. In the distance Meng Li also appeared. However, his face was somewhat pale. Not only that, if one looked closely, one could see a faint sword mark on Meng Li's hand. It was a sword mark that had been treated. Senior is so strong? Duan Lingtian was shocked. According to what Meng Li said, Sword 13 had only broken through to the 9th level of the void transformation stage recently, whereas he'd broken through to the 9th level of the void transformation stage long ago. But even then he was still unable to defeat Sword 13. Sword 13, you really deserve to be the publicly acknowledged peerless genius of the Blade Sect's House of Swords. You've just broken through to the 9th level of the void transformation stage, yet you're already able to suppress me. I have to admit that you're extremely strong. Meng Li stood in the distance and looked at Sword 13 with a serious expression. Meng Li, your Skywolf Fort must give me an explanation for the matter today no matter what. Otherwise don't blame me, Sword 13, for being ruthless. At this moment, Sword 13's gaze was cold and fierce, and he'd completely lost his amiable manner from before as he chatted cheerfully with all the young geniuses, and he seemed to have transformed into a peerless god of slaughter. The eyes of all the young geniuses that chose to join the Blade sect lit up. This was the vice sect master of the House of Swords that they wanted to join. At the same time that such strength caused them to be filled with yearning, they felt a great sense of security. Swoosh. Suddenly, a gust of wind whistling swept over, and subsequently, a familiar figure appeared before the eyes of Duan Lingtian and the others. Feng Wei. Duan Lingtian's face went grim when he saw the person that had arrived. When he noticed the fierce and greedy gaze that the person looked at him with, he knew that Feng Wei had come for him as well. Wait, greedy? Duan Lingtian's heart jerked. Feng Wei's gaze revealed greed when he looked at him, and Qin was able to faintly guess what it meant. Perhaps he possessed something that Feng Wei urgently desired, or more precisely speaking, it was something that Skywolf Fort desired. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Skywolf Fort to dispatch 4 vice fort masters. Feng Wei, you've come at the right time. I'll leave that Duan Lingtian to you. Yukong, join forces with me to suppress Sword 13. Ning, can you deal with Saber 5? Meng Li revealed a smile when he saw Feng Wei arrive, and he ordered. As soon as Meng Li finished speaking, he charged towards Sword 13 with the other vice fort master of Skywolf Fort, Yukong, in a menacing manner without holding back in the slightest. Early on when Feng Wei appeared, Sword 13's expression had already gone grim. Never had he imagined that Skywolf Fort would actually dispatch such a large force for the sake of a Duan Lingtian. All 4 vice fort masters had moved out. But when facing the joint forces of Meng Li and Yukong, he quickly didn't have the mood to think about why Skywolf Fort would do this, and his figure flashed out to battle Meng Li and Yukong. He wasn't afraid of a single Meng Li, and it was even to the extent that so long as he was given time, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill Meng Li. A single Yukong, if he exerted his full strength, then he would at most be able to cause Yukong to lose his life with 3 sword strikes. But when Meng Li and Yukong joined forces, it caused him to have the feeling that he had nowhere to exert his strength, and he was barely able to fight them to a draw. Saber 5, I've wanted to fight you since long ago. Ning Kan looked at Saber 5 as he shouted coldly, and then his entire body flashed out as if he transformed into an eagle that whistled as he charged towards Saber 5. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Saber 5 laughed with disdain as the broad saber in his hand flashed out boldly to tear through the sky, and he moved forward to meet Ning Kan without the slightest fear to battle Ning Kan. All of you behave yourselves. Don't blame me for being merciless if anyone dares to flee. Feng Wei's gaze flashed past Duan Lingtian and the others before finally descending onto Duan Lingtian, and then a wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Duan Lingtian, I've really underestimated you. As soon as Feng Wei said this, it caused all the young geniuses including Feng Tianwu, Su Li and Zhang Shouyong to look at Duan Lingtian successively, and they felt that Feng Wei's words carried hidden meaning. They felt shock and curiosity from the bottom of their hearts towards Skywolf Fort deploying such a large force for the sake of Duan Lingtian today. Now I'll give you a chance. Swear on the 99 heavenly tribulation that you'll forever be loyal to my Skywolf Fort, and I can spare your life. Otherwise this day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Feng Wei's gaze gradually turned cold, and his breath was like ice that was bone-piercingly cold, causing the group of young geniuses present to be unable to refrain from shivering and shuddering with fear. Feng Wei actually wanted Duan Lingtian to make such an oath. Once this oath was made, it meant that Duan Lingtian would be bound to the Skywolf Fort for his entire lifetime, and he wouldn't betray Skywolf Fort and wouldn't do anything that would let Skywolf Fort down. Otherwise he would be blasted to death by the 99 heavenly tribulation. Besides that, Feng Wei had clearly stated that if Duan Lingtian didn't make this oath, then he would make Duan Lingtian die today, or perhaps he would make Duan Lingtian die right now. Swear loyalty to Skywolf Fort? Duan Lingtian sneered. If I only have this choice, then I'd rather die. Then you can go to hell. Feng Wei's eyes revealed ruthlessness as the terrifying imposing aura on his body swept out, and he took a step forward as his imposing aura gushed out and smashed down towards Duan Lingtian. Bang! Duan Lingtian's face sank slightly when he was pressured by Feng Wei's imposing aura, and a talisman appeared out of thin air in his tightly clenched right hand. It was precisely one of the 2 talismans his deadbeat father had left behind for him. Right when Duan Lingtian intended to toss out the talisman and crush Feng Wei, a figure appeared like a shadow to obstruct his path. Uncle Feng. As he looked at the red-clothed middle-aged man that stood before him, Duan Lingtian's heart shook, and he said with an anxious expression, Uncle Feng, you're not a match for him, quickly move aside. If I, Feng Wudao, am unable to even protect my own son-in-law, then what's the point of me living? Feng Wudao laughed loudly when he heard Duan Lingtian, and his laughter was wanton as he faced death calmly. Uncle Feng, I can... Right when Duan Lingtian wanted to say that he could deal with Feng Wei, 4 figures appeared by Feng Wudao's side right after him, and they protected him firmly behind them along with Feng Wudao. Feng Qianwu, Su Li Zhang Shouyong and Ta Mu. All of you move aside. When he noticed the terrifying aura that arose from Feng Wei's body, Duan Lingtian's face instantly went grim, and he hurriedly flew out with the intention of locking onto Feng Wei before tossing out the talisman in his hand. But unfortunately he was still too late. Bang! Feng Wei casually raised his hand and slapped out with his vast palm, causing waves of continuous sounds of air exploding to resound out in the sky as a terrifying force pressed down onto Feng Wudao's group of 5, causing them to be blasted flying. Wow! The 5 people in the lead had ghastly pale expressions as they spat out a few mouthfuls of blood in a sorry state, and their bodies were on the verge of collapse. Duan Lingtian's gaze went cold as he stared fixedly at Feng Wei, and the talisman in his hand was on the verge of being released. Right at this moment. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Numerous swift figures instantly appeared behind Feng Wei, and they were like shadows that followed behind him. 10 old men that wore the green-colored uniform of Skywolf Fort stared fiercely at Duan Lingtian and the others, and traces of a ruthless aura were emitted from their bodies. 10 elders of Skywolf Fort. Duan Lingtian's face went grim as he looked at the pairs of silver eyes on the Skywolf badges on the chests of the 10 old men, and he put away the talisman that he was just about to toss out. At this moment, even if he tossed out the talisman and was able to kill Feng Wei, he would still be unable to escape calamity. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of using the talisman to kill the strongest vice fort master of Skywolf Fort and allow Sword 13 to turn the situation around. But that old fellow was truly too far away from him, and he was in battle with Sword 13, causing his figure to be difficult to capture. Right at this moment, an explosive shout sounded out, and it drew the gazes of Duan Lingtian and the others. It was Saber 5 that had blasted Ningkan flying. Chapter 835. Kill? Saber 5 coldly spat out a single word, and then he charged towards those 10 Skywolf Fort elders like a tiger that had entered a pack of wolves. With a raise of his saber, 3 Skywolf Fort elders had died under his saber in the blink of an eye. Saber 5. The faces of Ning Kan and Feng Wei went grim when they saw this, and they charged madly towards Saber 5 to go 2 against 1. The 7 of you bring that Duan Lingtian back. At the same time, Ning Kan, who joined forces with Feng Wei to temporarily restrain Saber 5, ordered the remaining 7 Skywolf Fort elders with a cold voice. The 7 Skywolf Fort elders recovered from the shock of their companions being killed, and their gazes descended onto Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. All of them recognized Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian recognized them as well. The 10 Skywolf Fort elders that followed behind Feng Wei were precisely those 10 Skywolf Fort elders that had appeared in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties earlier. The remaining 7 Skywolf Fort elders attacked at the same time to pounce towards Duan Lingtian, and they'd taken Duan Lingtian to be their prey. Feng Wudao, who'd consumed a healing medicinal pill and recovered slightly from his injuries, had a piercingly cold gaze as he flashed towards a Skywolf Fort elder to stop him. That Skywolf Fort elder was in existence at the 4th level of the Void Transformation stage as well, and for a time he was evenly matched with Feng Wudao. The other 6 Skywolf Fort elders continued to charge towards Duan Lingtian. Elder brother Duan, watch out. Duan Lingtian. Brother Lingtian. Master. Feng Qianwu, Su Li Zhang Shouyong, and Ta Mu hadn't completely recovered from their injuries when they pounced towards the 6 Skywolf Fort elders with the intention of stopping them. But unfortunately, only a single Skywolf Fort elder made a move, and the strength of the Void Transformation stage swept out to blast them flying. For a moment the 4 of them were injured again. Fortunately, the elder from Skywolf Fort didn't kill them. Otherwise, Feng Qianwu and the others wouldn't have survived. 6. Looking at the 6 elders of the Skywolf Fort who were charging at him, Duan Lingtian's face turned extremely ugly. Among the 6 elders of the Void Transformation realm, the 2 talismans in his hand could only kill 2 of them. However, after killing 2 people there were still 4 people left. It seemed meaningless. He then looked at Meng Li, who was in an intense battle with Sword 13 and whose figure was flickering unpredictably. The strongest Vice Fort Master of Skywolf Fort, in existence at the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage. If he could use the talisman to kill him, then with Sword 13's strength, he would surely be able to reverse the situation. But the problem was that Meng Li, who was in battle mode, was so fast that he couldn't lock onto his target. If he wanted to kill someone with a talisman puppet, he had to lock onto the target for a period of time. In the end, Duan Lingtian completely gave up on this idea. Even if we can't win, we still have to fight. I'd rather die in battle than become a captive. Duan Lingtian looked at the 6 elders of the Skywolf Fort, and his eyes went cold as the origin energy on his body skyrocketed before fusing with material wind concept to transform into waves of strong winds that flashed around his entire body. Slap. The hairband that held Duan Lingtian's long hair together with Feng Qingyang's hair broke apart, and the aura on his body ceaselessly rose. Right when Duan Lingtian intended to withdraw his quasi-royal grade spirit sword and fight desperately. Swish. An enormous sword light that was over 10 meters long descended from the sky, and it descended towards the 6 elders of the Skywolf Fort that were charging towards Duan Lingtian with an imposing manner that shot into the sky like a rainbow. The faces of the 6 Skywolf Fort elders went grim as they joined forces to attack, yet they were barely able to resist this terrifying sword light, yet they still needed a certain amount of time to shatter it. Duan Lingtian, leave quickly. Survive well. Right when Duan Lingtian was stunned by the scene before his eyes, a voice that was like a thunderclap swept down and entered into his ears. Senior. Duan Lingtian's gaze focused as he looked at Sword 13 that was dealing with the 2 vice fort masters of the Skywolf Fort, and he realized that it was Sword 13 that had made a move earlier. Master, leave quickly. Meanwhile, Tamu reacted and charged towards Duan Lingtian before flashing towards the distance and fleeing with Duan Lingtian. When Feng Qianwu, Su Li and Zhang Shouyong returned to their senses, Tamu and Duan Lingtian had already left far away, and their speeds were so swift that they were unable to catch up to them. Elder brother Duan, you must survive. Feng Qianwu stood in the sky as she spoke silently in her heart. With her speed, not to mention being unable to catch up to Duan Lingtian, even if she caught up to him, she would only become a burden. So she chose to stay. Su Li and Zhang Shouyong had similar thoughts. Right at this moment, besides the elder of the Skywolf Fort that was dealing with Feng Wu Dao, the other 6 elders of the Skywolf Fort had finally shattered the sword light that was over 10 meters long. Wanna leave? The 6 elders of the Skywolf Fort revealed cold smiles as they looked at the 2 figures that were gradually turning into tiny black dots that were moving further and further away, and all of them soared into the sky and chased after them. Shit. The expressions of Feng Qianwu, Su Li and Zhang Shouyong went grim as they hurriedly chased after them with the intention of stopping them. But unfortunately, only a single person had made a move and easily blasted them back. Sword 13 and Saber 5's expressions were extremely unsightly. Presently they were utterly unable to free themselves to assist Duan Lingtian as the 4 vice fort masters of the Skywolf Fort intended to suppress them. If it was at any other time as the vice sect masters of the Blade Sect, it was sufficient for them to be extremely proud of fighting the 4 vice fort masters of the Skywolf Fort to a tie while fighting 2 against 4. But now they didn't have such a mood. They were only worried about Duan Lingtian's safety. Meng Li, from today onwards, the Skywolf Fort will be the mortal enemy of our Blade Sect. Sword 13's voice was cold as it sounded out. His words were filled with ruthlessness. Sword 13, don't forget that you're still not the sect master of the Sword Sect. You're still not qualified to represent the entire Blade Sect. Meng Li's voice sounded with a hint of mockery. Moreover, 3 elders of the Skywolf Fort have died today, and not a single person from your Blade Sect has died. Exchanging the deaths of 3 elders of the Skywolf Fort for 1 Duan Lingtian shouldn't be too much, right? Sword 13 snorted coldly. He was just casually threatening Meng Li earlier. Naturally, he knew that the Blade Sect wouldn't go to war with the Skywolf Fort so easily. Not to mention that not a single person from their side had died while 3 elders of the Skywolf Fort had died. Even if Duan Lingtian had really died and no one from the Skywolf Fort had died, the Blade Sect might not stand up for Duan Lingtian. After all, to the entire Blade Sect, Duan Lingtian was insignificant now. It was impossible for the Blade Sect to shed all pretenses with the Skywolf Fort for the sake of Duan Lingtian and even go to war. Junior brother Jianghu cares about them. Since these bastards from the Skywolf Fort have come to provoke us, then even if we kill all of them, that old fellow from the Skywolf Fort has nothing to say. Saber 5 shouted out explosively as the broad saber in his hand glowed brightly and flashed directly towards Ning Can and Feng Wei. He didn't fall into a disadvantageous position in the slightest when going against 2 by himself, and he was like a peerless god of war. Master is so formidable. In the distance, Long Yun, who stood silently amidst the group of young geniuses and hadn't made any movements since the beginning, looked at Saber 5 with an expression of admiration. The other young geniuses had excited expressions as well. Sword 13 and Saber 5 fought 4 against 4 and suppressed the 4 vice fort masters of the Skywolf Fort, and it gave them an extremely great shock. As for the life and death of Duan Lingtian and Ta Mu, they didn't care. On the other side, Feng Tianwu, Su Li and Zhang Shouyong looked at the 6 figures that chased after Duan Lingtian and vanished before their eyes, and they realized for a time that they were unable to help Duan Lingtian in the slightest. Now they only hoped that Duan Lingtian and Ta Mu would be able to quickly find a place to hide and escape this calamity. The 3 of them who were laden with worries didn't stay idle, and they helped Feng Wudao deal with the Elder of the Skywolf Fort. The battle between the Elder of the Skywolf Fort and Feng Wudao grew more and more shocked as the battle progressed. At the beginning, he discerned that this red-clothed middle-aged man had just broken through to the 4th level of the Void Interpretation stage, and he could deal with him at will. Before they left, Vice Fort Master Meng of the Skywolf Fort had given the order that besides Duan Lingtian, he wasn't allowed to kill anyone from the Blade sect. So he held back. Later on, he noticed that Feng Wudao seemed to grow stronger as the battle progressed, and up until now he'd practically utilized his entire strength, yet Feng Wudao was still able to fight him equally. Freak. In the end, it was the Elder of the Skywolf Fort who fell into a disadvantaged position that ceaselessly roared in his heart. Meanwhile, Feng Tianwu, Su Li and Zhang Shouyong had come over as well, and they joined forces with Feng Wudao to deal with the Elder of the Skywolf Fort, and they created some small trouble for the Elder of the Skywolf Fort. Sometimes, some small trouble was sufficient to become great trouble. Just like now. The Elder of the Skywolf Fort, who'd originally been suppressed by Feng Wudao, who grew stronger as the battle progressed to the point of falling into a disadvantaged position, revealed a flaw when Feng Tianwu's group of 3 interfered. This flaw was utilized by Feng Wudao, and his sword flashed out like a bolt of lightning to instantly penetrate the chest of the Elder of the Skywolf Fort, causing him to be heavily injured. Subsequently, Feng Wudao's attacks became even swifter, and the sword in his hand even transformed into a few tens of sword lights. In the blink of an eye, it increased to over 100 sword lights that covered the heavens and the earth as they swept down. A rain of swords descended, and it pressured the Elder of the Skywolf Fort to the point he suffered even more injuries, causing him to be in an even more sorry state. If it was at any other time, he wouldn't take this sort of fancy sword technique seriously at all, but the problem was that he was heavily injured now, and he'd used all his strength to barely protect his vitals. Swish. A sword strike that was like a stroke of genius easily swept past the throat of the Elder of the Skywolf Fort, and it killed him. After the Elder of the Skywolf Fort died, Feng Wudao put away his sword and stood there, then he looked at Feng Tianwu's group of 3 before looking at the surroundings, and his expression instantly turned grim. Where's that kid Ling Tian and Ta Mu? Elder brother Duan and Ta Mu fled earlier. But those 6 elders of the Skywolf Fort chased after them as well. Feng Tianwu's beautiful face was filled with worry, and she laughed bitterly as she spoke. At this moment, she only hated herself for being too weak and being unable to help her elder brother Duan. Which direction did they head towards? Feng Wudao asked with a low voice. In the next moment after he found out the direction Duan Lingtian left towards, Feng Wudao's figure flashed out like a bolt of lightning to chase after them. In the sky above a vast plain, 2 figures flashed past. It was precisely Duan Lingtian and Ta Mu who just fled. Master, we're really unlucky. There isn't even a place to hide in such a large plain. Ta Mu, who moved forward swiftly, couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Duan Lingtian's expression was unsightly as well. All along the way, everywhere they passed were plains and deserts, and it was difficult to find a place to hide temporarily. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Chapter 836. Both of you should be proud of yourselves for being able to flee so far under our pursuit. A Skywolf Fort elder looked at Duan Lingtian and Ta Mu as he spoke indifferently. Elders? Or can you let us go? When you return to report, just say you didn't find us. How about it? Ta Mu grinned, and he completely didn't have the awareness of being a trapped beast. However, no one paid any attention to Ta Mu. If all of you are afraid you won't be able to obtain any benefits from letting us go, then all of you can be at ease. Look at my master, he's only 28 years old, yet his cultivation is at the 4th level of the Void Interpretation stage, and his future is limitless. It's even to the extent that even the fort master of your Skywolf fort might not be able to compare to him in the future. As he finished speaking, Tamu's tone contained slight temptation mixed within. So long as all of you let us go today, it's equivalent to giving my master a great favor, and in the future, shut up. A Skywolf fort elder seemed to be unable to endure Tamu's endless chatter, and he shouted out coldly to interrupt Tamu. Vice Fort Master Feng said that once we catch up to the two of them, kill them. Just bring the spatial rings back. One of the Skywolf fort elders spoke with a piercingly cold voice. Instantly, the other 5 Skywolf fort elders revealed killing intent as they looked at Duan Lingtian and Tamu, and their origin energy and material concept had fused together on their bodies, causing terrifying energy to be on the verge of erupting. Spatial ring? Duan Lingtian stood in midair, and he tried his best to maintain a calm expression when he was in such a dangerous situation. Because he knew that no matter how panicked he was now, it was useless, and only by maintaining a calm attitude might he be able to seek a chance at survival. Feng Wei revealed greed in his eyes when he saw me earlier, and he obviously has designs towards me. Now these people want my spatial ring. Duan Lingtian's heart sank. What exactly do they want? For a time, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be slightly bewildered. Could it be a quasi-royal grade spirit sword? This thought couldn't help but arise in Duan Lingtian's heart. After all, when he fought Qi Feng today, he'd utilized the quasi-royal grade spirit sword to shatter Qi Feng's arrow. But he was extremely sure that besides the sect master of the emotion-severing sect, Pei-En, there ought to be no one including Sword 13 that was able to discern that the sword he used at that time wasn't simple. Unless the elusive fort master of the Skywolf fort is hiding in the dark and discovered the extraordinariness of the quasi-royal grade spirit sword. But is this possible? Duan Lingtian's mind spun rapidly as he considered various possibilities. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian had a flash of inspiration. Also, that Zishang kept saying that I wouldn't live for long. He said the same thing when I left. Could it be because of him? Duan Lingtian gasped when he thought up to this point. In his opinion, Zishang, that madman, was capable of doing anything. But how did he convince Skywolf Fort to send such a large force to deal with me? Furthermore, he wants something from my storage ring. Duan Lingtian pondered. In next to no time, a broken stone tablet appeared in Duan Lingtian's mind without rhyme or reason, and it was difficult to disperse. Right. How could I have almost forgotten? The Devil Seal Tablet. That day during the Darkhan Dynasty's martial competition, the soul of the expert suspected to be Emperor Wu concealed within Zishang's body had once personally mentioned the Devil Seal Tablet after possessing Zishang's body. In other words, he knows of the Devil Seal Tablet, and it's very likely that he knows of the Devil Seal Tablet's background. Moreover, the Devil Seal Tablet in my possession is something that Zishang yearns for even in his dreams. After all, if I didn't have the Devil Seal Tablet, he wouldn't be restrained by me at all times. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Now Duan Lingtian was able to determine. It was all Zishang's doing behind the scenes. Not to mention the Devil Seal Tablet's ability to suppress the soul, just its ability to amplify strength by 100% is sufficient to make any third-rate power in the foreign lands fight to the death for it. The soul of the expert suspected to be Emperor Wu within Zishang's body knows of the Devil Seal Tablet, so I presume he has a very good understanding of the Devil Seal Tablet and might even know of the Devil Seal Tablet's amplification ability. Even if Zishang only mentioned the Devil Seal Tablet's amplification ability before Ning Can, the Skywolf Fort would surely go mad for it. If the Devil Seal Tablet that amplifies strength by 100% falls into the hands of the Skywolf Fort's Fort Master, then the Skywolf Fort would even be able to use it to suppress third-rate powers like the Blade Sect, Empyrean Temple, and Emotion-Severing Sect. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, and the more he thought about it, the more he was sure that the objective of the group of people before him was precisely the Devil Seal Tablet within his spatial ring. Swoosh! Suddenly, a wave of terrifying howls of the wind swept over, causing Duan Lingtian to feel as if he was struck by lightning, and his back even broke out in cold sweat. Master, watch out! At practically the exact same moment, an explosive shout sounded out by Duan Lingtian's ears. Bang! An enormous bang sounded out, and it caused Duan Lingtian to be unable to refrain himself from raising his head. With a single glance, he saw the robust figure that was blocking his path not too far away. However, this robust figure had a dispirited aura at this moment. A fist had passed through Tamu's chest, and it was precisely the fist of the Skywolf Fort's elder that had hastily made a move against Duan Lingtian. What a touching scene. The Skywolf Fort's elder casually withdrew his fist, and with a raise of his hand, his water concept suffused out and eliminated the blood on his hand. On the other hand, a hideous bloody hole had appeared on Tamu's chest, and fresh blood ceaselessly gushed out from it. In the blink of an eye, it dyed his lower body red, yet he still forcefully and bitterly held on. Master. Tamu struggled for a moment before looking at Duanling Tian with great difficulty, and he seemed to want to say something. But before he could finish speaking, his body suddenly trembled, and he completely lost all signs of life. After that, he fell from the sky and fell onto the plains. Tamu! Duanling Tian's pupils suddenly constricted. Never had he imagined that Tamu would use his own body to block the fist of the Skywolf Fort's elder for him. After all, he and Tamu could be said to have no relationship at all. If one really wanted to talk about the relationship between them, then it was nothing more than Tamu's wishful thinking of taking him as his master and wanting to learn the soul skill, Thousand Illusions, from him. But now, it was precisely such a person that he wasn't willing to take as his disciple no matter what. That person had blocked the strike of the Skywolf Fort's elder for him and saved his life. How much courage was required for this? Moreover, this wasn't something that could be accomplished just by having courage, it was also something that was worthy of him doing this. Was it worth it for me? Duanling Tian's heart trembled, and he seemed to be speaking to himself yet also seemed to be asking the already dead Tamu. As far as he was concerned, since the beginning when Tamu wanted to take him as his master until that moment just now, he'd never given Tamu any face. It was even to the extent that he'd berated Tamu many times with the intention of making Tamu give up. But what about Tamu? Every time, Tamu would act as if nothing had happened, allowing him to berate him, allowing him to refuse as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry. Unknowingly, Duanling Tian's eyes were filled with tears, and they were on the verge of flowing out. These tears were because of the guilt he felt towards Tamu. If time could be turned back, even if it was only for a moment, he would absolutely not treat Tamu so coldly like before. But now he didn't have the chance. Tamu was dead. Tamu had died before him, died for him. Since someone is willing to die for you, then you haven't lived your life in vain. The 6 Skywolf Fort elders who had been silent for a moment came back to their senses. One of them looked at Duanling Tian with a face full of killing intent. Now you should follow him. Finally, Duanling Tian came back to his senses. The guilt he felt towards Tamu in his heart had completely transformed into bone-deep hatred, hatred towards the 6 Skywolf Fort elders in front of him, hatred towards the entire Skywolf Fort. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. However, did he have the strength to do so now? Unknowingly, Duanling Tian's face had turned incomparably pale. His fists were tightly clenched together and his nails pierced into his palms. After a sharp pain, blood flowed out. However, he seemed to be unaware of all of this. I want strength. I want great strength. I want strength that can destroy them, destroy Skywolf Fort, and even destroy everything. At this moment, Duanling Tian's desire for strength had almost reached the limit. The violet clothes on his body were swept by waves of strong winds, and they fluttered. His long hair that was already scattered behind him because of the broken band even fluttered with the wind and fluttered up, and the surroundings were suffused with layers of azure-colored strong winds. Whoosh! In the sky, the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth appeared abruptly. First, 60 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared, and then another 30 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared. 4th level of the void interpretation stage. 2nd level intermediate wind concept. No wonder you were the first to leave the illusory crypt during the 2nd round of the selections. So it turns out that you've always concealed your cultivation. You're actually a 4th level void interpretation stage martial artist. A Skywolf Fort elder spoke with slight surprise. He wasn't present during the 3rd and 4th round of the selections, so he didn't know that Duanling Tian had broken through later on, and he only thought that Duanling Tian had concealed his cultivation. 4th level void interpretation stage at the age of 28. Even in the entire Cloud continent, such natural talent can be considered to be monstrous. What a pity. The Skywolf Fort elder that used the age-measuring pearl to test Duanling Tian's age during the martial competition of the 10 dynasties felt pity for Duanling Tian. I've killed many people in my lifetime, yet I've never killed a genius martial artist like you. Even if you die today, we won't forget you. The corners of a Skywolf Fort elder's mouth curled into a cold smile as he spoke indifferently. The material concept on the bodies of the 6 Skywolf Fort elders swept out, causing their clothes to flutter without any wind, and their gazes descended onto Duanling Tian in unison. As far as they were concerned, the violet-clothed young man before them was bound to become a ghost at their hands today. At the same time that Duan Lingtian ceaselessly shouted in his heart, he noticed that the spatial ring on his hand had started trembling. With a command in his mind, Duan Lingtian noticed that the devil seal tablet within the storage space within his spatial ring had become restless, and it was even more disobedient than before. When Duan Lingtian's mind touched the devil seal tablet, his soul throbbed, and it was as if a voice that was filled with temptation was saying to him, "Let me out." Chapter 837. At the beginning Duan Lingtian thought it was a misconception. But after a few times he realized that all of this wasn't a misconception. Boundless strength? How boundless is it? Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. Duan Lingtian, who'd already become slightly mentally unstable because of Tamu's death and the waves of soundless shouts behind him, had a moment of thought, and he took out the devil seal tablet as if he was possessed. Whoosh! The devil seal tablet appeared before Duan Lingtian and floated there. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian noticed that the current devil seal tablet was extremely different when compared to before, and there were strands of black mist on it that coiled around the entire devil seal tablet. Moreover, when this black mist touched the devil seal tablet, it actually strangely transformed into a black liquid that flowed on the ancient characters that Duan Lingtian couldn't recognize on the devil seal tablet, and it seemed to have formed numerous small streams. Duan Lingtian stared blankly at the devil seal tablet that floated in midair, and for some unknown reason he actually stretched out his hand and even pressed it on the devil seal tablet. The devil seal tablet was icy cold to the touch, causing Duan Lingtian to be unable to help but shudder, and his body started to lightly tremble. At the same time, Duan Lingtian clearly saw that the black liquid that flowed on the devil seal tablet actually flowed along his fingers into his hand when he pressed his hand on it. After the clearly visible black liquid flowed into his fingers, it spread to the center of his palm, the back of his palm, and then followed along his arm all the way up. Icy cold and bone-piercing coldness filled Duan Lingtian's entire arm, causing him to completely sober up, and his face went ghastly pale. Shit. Presently Duan Lingtian didn't have the bewilderment from before, and at this instant he noticed that his arm that was in contact with the devil seal tablet wasn't under his control. It was as if someone had seized control of it. At the same time, Duan Lingtian felt an icy cold energy flow along the meridians on his shoulder and enter his internal organs, and at the same time, it flowed along his neck and head, directly into his soul. What exactly happened? This was Duan Lingtian's last thought before he lost consciousness. In the distance, the 6 Skywolf Fort elders who had surrounded Duan Lingtian and made it impossible for Duan Lingtian to escape were stunned when they saw Duan Lingtian suddenly take out a broken stone tablet. When they saw the black mist emitting from the broken stone tablet and even turning into a black liquid, they were dumbfounded. They saw the complex and indecipherable words engraved on the stone tablet. What is this? It was only when they saw Duan Lingtian's hand pressing on the stone tablet and the black liquid flowing from the words on the stone tablet fusing into Duan Lingtian's body that they began to wake up. When they woke up, Duan Lingtian's eyes, which had suddenly lit up, dimmed again. After it dimmed, a thick scarlet color suddenly appeared. His scarlet eyes were incomparably deep, like the boundless starry sky. They contained a strange magic that made people feel as if they were about to sink into them at first glance. The 6 Skywolf Fort elders' expressions changed drastically when they saw the captivating scarlet eyes. They faintly realized that Duan Lingtian's body might have undergone some changes. This change made them feel a little scared. His hair. Suddenly one of the Skywolf Fort elders exclaimed. The other 5 Skywolf Fort elders looked over when they heard the exclamation. Only then did they realize that when Duan Lingtian's eyes became scarlet and deep, his long black hair that fluttered in the wind also underwent an earth-shattering change in an instant. His long black hair turned into a devilish purple in an instant. Every time his long hair fluttered, it looked like a purple python swinging its tail. Who can tell me what the F***ck is going on? This was the thought in the minds of every Skywolf Fort elder. Slap. Right at this moment, a sound rang out and startled the 6 Skywolf Fort elders. They saw Duan Lingtian, whose eyes had turned scarlet, and whose devilish purple hair fluttered in the wind, grabbing the broken stone tablet in his hand. At the same time, wisps of black mist were emitted from Duan Lingtian's body and the broken stone tablet. They were filled with traces of an indescribably terrifying aura. The 6 Skywolf Fort elders felt a chill in their hearts when they sensed this aura from afar. Kill him. One of the Skywolf Fort elders shouted out in shock as if he wanted to use this to suppress the terror in his heart, and after he shouted out in shock, a Grade 3 spirit weapon appeared out of thin air in his hand as he charged towards Duanling Tian. Above the void, the heaven and earth phenomenon suddenly appeared and transformed into hundreds of silhouettes of ancient horned dragons. They rushed out and bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced towards Duanling Tian. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The other 5 Skywolf Fort elders had heavy expressions, and they didn't dare dally as they attacked with their full strength. The changes that occurred to Duanling Tian caused them to feel terrified and uneasy from the bottom of their hearts. At that instant they felt that Duanling Tian seemed to have become a completely different person. The current Duanling Tian brought too much pressure to them. Kill? The 6 Skywolf Fort elders flashed towards Duanling Tian from all directions, and the energy of the Grade 3 spirit weapons in their hands was completely released as they shot towards Duanling Tian. Above the void, a few thousand ancient horned dragon silhouettes formed a circle and ceaselessly pounced towards the center area with an imposing aura that shot into the sky like rainbows. Ling Tian. When the 6 Skywolf Fort elders made a move against Duanling Tian, Feng Wudao had arrived late and just happened to see the scene of Duanling Tian being besieged by the 6 Skywolf Fort elders. Presently he didn't even have the time to think about why Duanling Tian's hair would become violet, why his eyes would become scarlet red, and what was with the broken stone tablet in his hand that emitted a terrifying aura. Bah, 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 bah. The weakest amongst the 6 Skywolf Fort elders was in existence at the 3rd level of the Void Transformation stage, and the strongest was even in existence at the 5th level of the Void Transformation stage. They attacked in unison and covered the heavens and the earth as their attacks swept towards Duanling Tian. Right at this moment, Duanling Tian moved. He slowly raised the broken stone tablet in his hand and tossed it above his head, causing it to float in the sky above him. In the next moment, with the broken stone tablet as the center, a translucent black-colored light barrier descended down towards Duanling Tian, and it enveloped Duanling Tian's entire body within it to form a layer of protective barrier. Right at this moment, the full force attacks of the 6 Skywolf Fort elders arrived. Bah, 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 bah. Numerous extremely terrifying forces that were even capable of annihilating a 6th-level Void Transformation stage expert swept out and descended onto the translucent black-colored light barrier that stretched out from the broken stone tablet. Waves of enormous bangs that were like thunderclaps sounded out as terrifying sounds of air exploding resounded out without end, and at the center of the energy explosion, numerous shapeless waves of air surged and swept out. Even Feng Wudao, who was 100 meters away, couldn't help but narrow his eyes from being struck by the waves of air. How could this be possible? Right when Feng Wudao's expression was unsightly and thought that Duanling Tian had already been killed by the 6 Skywolf Fort elders, the scene that appeared before him caused him to be dumbstruck. In the distance, the 6 Skywolf Fort elders that formed an encirclement had already stopped attacking. If one looked carefully, one would notice that their bodies were trembling violently, and their eyes that stared ahead were wide open while disbelief covered their faces. It was as if they'd seen something terrifying. How could this be possible? This isn't real. Could it be that the stone tablet is what the Vice Fort Masters are looking for? The 6 Skywolf Fort elders were completely dumbstruck as they looked at Duanling Tian, who was protected by the layer of translucent black-colored light barrier and was completely unharmed. In next to no time, their gazes simultaneously shot towards the broken stone tablet above Duanling Tian. The light barrier that protected Duanling Tian extended out from it. Duanling Tian is nothing to worry about if we seize this stone tablet. A crazy thought arose in the heart of one of the Skywolf Fort elders, and then he flew out and flashed towards the broken stone tablet above Duanling Tian with the intention of seizing it. Whoosh. Meanwhile, a flash appeared before the eyes of the other 5 Skywolf Fort elders, and they noticed that Duanling Tian had instantly vanished on the spot and appeared at the side of the broken stone tablet when he appeared once more. Impossible. How could this be possible? The other 5 Skywolf Fort elders were dumbstruck as they gazed at their companion that was forcefully lifted up by Duanling Tian like an eagle grabbing onto a chick and had his strength shaken off. Elder Ping is in existence at the 5th level of the Void Transformation stage. This Duanling Tian actually subdued him so easily? How could this be possible? At this moment, the 5 Skywolf Fort elders couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Crack. A clear and ear-piercing sound of bones breaking sounded out, and it was Duanling Tian who stood at the side of the broken stone tablet that exerted strength in his hand and directly broke the neck of the Skywolf Fort elder in his hand. 5th level void transformation stage, dead. Monster. Monster. The other 5 Skywolf Fort elders shuddered and completely sobered up, and they roared as they scattered and fled in all directions. Now they didn't dare have the thought of killing Duan Lingtian. What a joke. The strongest amongst them, Elder Ping, had been subdued by Duan Lingtian in a single move, and he'd even broken his neck and directly killed him. Even if they attacked, the outcome wouldn't be much different. At this moment they only felt their scalps go numb, and they were unable to wrap their heads around why Duan Lingtian would possess such formidable strength after undergoing an unusual transformation. At the same time that they fled, they felt that the black-haired and black-eyed Duan Lingtian from before was so amiable. Gulp. Feng Wu Dao fiercely gulped down a mouthful of saliva and muttered with an expression of disbelief. That was in existence at the 5th level of the void transformation stage. He was killed by that kid Lingtian in a single move? Is he really that kid Lingtian? Bewilderment had only just arisen in Feng Wu Dao's heart when he noticed that the distant Duan Lingtian had made a move. Duan Lingtian raised his hand and a suction force that caused the airflow in the air to form a clearly visible vortex stretched out, and after it sucked the broken stone tablet into his hand, he vanished into thin air before Feng Wu Dao's eyes. Exactly, he vanished into thin air. So swift. Chapter 838. After all, even when he witnessed the battle between the Vice-Sect Master of the Blade Sect, Sword 13, and the 2 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort earlier, even though he wasn't able to see the flashing figures of the 3 of them clearly, he was still able to catch some of it. Yet now he was utterly unable to catch a glimpse of Duan Lingtian's figure. Whoosh. In the next moment, he saw that Duan Lingtian, who held the broken stone tablet and had fluttering violet hair, appear out of thin air by the side of a Skywolf Fort elder that was fleeing. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian slapped out with his other hand, causing a deep and terrifying black-colored energy to sweep out and descend onto the Skywolf Fort elder, instantly killing him. In the next moment, Duan Lingtian vanished on the spot. Bang, 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 bang. It was similarly a casual palm strike, yet the other 4 Skywolf Fort elders hadn't fled far before being caught up by him and easily killed. Duan Lingtian's attack was so swift that the roiling energy of heaven and earth in the horizon was completely unable to condense into the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth. Lingtian. Right when Duan Lingtian killed the last Skywolf Fort elder, Feng Wu Dao, who'd heaved a sigh of relief, looked at Duan Lingtian and called out to him. Whoosh. Duan Lingtian vanished on the spot, and when he appeared once more, he was already before Feng Wu Dao. Lingtian, how did you? Feng Wu Dao, who was just about to ask why Duan Lingtian would suddenly possess such a terrifying strength, stopped abruptly halfway through his words. Because Duan Lingtian was currently using a pair of bloody and deep eyes to stare at him, and it caused him to feel a wave of fear in his heart. It wasn't just that, Duan Lingtian's hand was even raised up high, and strands of deep black-colored energy coiled around it as it emitted an aura that caused terror to arise from the bottom of Feng Wu Dao's heart. Feng Wu Dao couldn't be more familiar with this movement of Duan Lingtian's. Just a moment ago, Duan Lingtian had struck out like this to kill those 5 Skywolf Fort elders. Lingtian, it's me. I'm Uncle Feng. When he saw Duan Lingtian seeming as if his palm would descend at any moment, Feng Wu Dao felt a wave of fear in his heart, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead as he couldn't help but speak out in panic. He had no doubt that once Duan Lingtian's palm landed, he would die without a doubt. Meanwhile, Feng Wu Dao realized a problem as well. Duan Lingtian seemed to have lost his mind. Your eyes turned blood red and your hair turned purple. Lingtian brat, what happened to you? Feng Wu Dao's heart was filled with confusion. Uncle Feng? Finally, Duan Lingtian opened his mouth with great difficulty and slowly spat out a few syllables. Moreover, the scarlet color in his eyes seemed to show signs of fading away. Right, I'm Uncle Feng, Feng Wu Dao. Feng Wu Dao heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Duan Lingtian reacting and gradually lowering his raised hand, causing the mysterious and terrifying black-colored energy to disperse along with this. At this moment, his back was already completely drenched in cold sweat. In his eyes, the current Duan Lingtian was even more terrifying than the few Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort added together. Uncle Feng? There was still slight confusion in Duan Lingtian's eyes as he lightly shook his head as if he was recalling something, and the expression on his face seemed to be slightly painful. Lingtian brat, what's wrong with you? Feng Wu Dao noticed that something wasn't right with Duan Lingtian, and his face went slightly pale. In the end, his gaze descended onto the broken stone tablet in Duan Lingtian's hand. He had an extremely strange intuition that the changes that occurred in Duan Lingtian's body ought to be related to this stone tablet. Feng Wudao wasn't unfamiliar with this stone tablet. That day during the Dark Han Dynasty's martial competition, Duan Lingtian had precisely used this stone tablet to counter Zishang's secret technique. Today, during the fourth round of the selections, he'd even used this stone tablet to cause Zishang to not even have the courage to enter the arena to battle him. When he thought up to here, Feng Wudao slowly stretched out his hand with the intention of taking away the broken stone tablet in Duan Lingtian's hand, as he wanted to see if Duan Lingtian would return to normal without the stone tablet. But Feng Wudao had just stretched out his hand when he noticed an extremely gloomy and cold aura that instantly assaulted his face and enveloped his entire body within it. I have no ill intent. Feng Wudao hurriedly withdrew his hand when he saw Duan Lingtian's expression instantly change to stare coldly and indifferently at him. Only now did he realize that he shouldn't have done that. Because at this moment, the scarlet-red color in Duan Lingtian's eyes grew even stronger, and the black-colored aura emitted from his body even caused the surrounding air to become gloomy and cold. Whoosh! Suddenly, Duan Lingtian raised his hand as a terrifying black-colored energy coiled around his palm, and it seemed as if it would descend onto Feng Wudao at any moment. Feng Wudao's mind was tense as cold sweat flowed from his forehead, and his heart was filled with a perturbed feeling. He knew that his action of wanting to take the broken stone tablet earlier had already completely and utterly infuriated Duan Lingtian, who'd lost all reason. Uncle. Right when Feng Wudao thought Duan Lingtian would strike down with his palm, he noticed that Duan Lingtian had once again spoken a few words, and this caused him to be unable to help but heave a sigh of relief. Lingtian, Feng Wudao was just about to guide Duan Lingtian patiently to guide Duan Lingtian to recover his reason when he noticed Duan Lingtian had vanished into thin air before his eyes and transformed into nothingness. Lingtian. Feng Wudao's face went grim as he hurriedly glanced towards the surroundings. In the end, he didn't notice Duan Lingtian's tracks, and he even didn't know which direction Duan Lingtian had gone. Shit. Lingtian has lost all reason now, and if he were to wander about randomly in the foreign lands, I'm afraid his life would be in danger. Feng Wudao had an anxious expression as he looked around for a while, yet he was at a loss for what to do. In the end, he could only search nearby, yet he didn't notice any trace of Duan Lingtian after searching for a long time, and he could only give up in the end. When dusk descended, Feng Wudao returned to the place where the elders of Skywolf Fort were killed, and only now did he notice that the group of people from the Blade sect had arrived. Father. Feng Qianwu moved over to greet Feng Wudao when she saw him. Father, where did you go? What exactly happened here? Who killed these elders of Skywolf Fort? I even saw Tamu's corpse. Only elder brother Duan's whereabouts are unknown. Do you know where he went? Feng Qianwu's beautiful face was filled with anxiousness. She was most worried about the safety of Duan Lingtian and her father earlier, because she noticed that Tamu was dead, and the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort were dead as well. Now, when she saw her father was safe and sound and she didn't see Duan Lingtian, she couldn't help but be even more worried about the safety of Duan Lingtian. Feng Wudao glanced at the 7 corpses scattered on the plains when he heard this, and he was just about to speak when he noticed Sword 13, Saber 5, and the others had come over to greet him. When I caught up, I noticed the corpses of Tamu and the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort. As for that kid Lingtian, I didn't see him. I searched the surroundings for a while, yet I didn't notice any trace of him. Feng Wudao sighed as he spoke. As far as he was concerned, the incident from before was truly too strange. Especially the strength Duan Lingtian revealed after he underwent an unexpected transformation. It was absolutely a strength that surpassed the Void transformation stage, and it might even have attained the Martial Monarch stage. All of this seemed to be related to the mysterious broken stone tablet. Besides that, according to his guess, it was very likely that the reason the 4 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort had come for Duan Lingtian was for the sake of the broken stone tablet. Perhaps they'd found out about some things from Zishang. It was precisely because of this that Feng Wudao had decided to conceal everything he'd seen earlier after careful consideration. In this way he would be able to better protect Duan Lingtian. Otherwise, once the secret of the mysterious stone tablet was exposed, even the Blade sect might be moved by it and do something bad to Duan Lingtian. What? Feng Qianwu was terrified to the point her beautiful face went pale when she heard this. Why is it like this? Where could elder brother Duan have gone? Su Li and Zhang Shouyong stood at the side with worried expressions as well. After hearing what Feng Wudao said, Jian Shisan sighed. I went to look at those 7 corpses. Tamu ought to have been killed by the members of Skywolf Fort. As for the members of Skywolf Fort, they were all killed by the same expert. Based on the distance between the 6 corpses of Skywolf Fort and the marks on their corpses, that expert's speed was extremely swift, and it even far surpassed my speed. When he spoke up to hear, Jian Shisan took a deep breath before saying, moreover, the spatial rings on the corpses of those 6 Skywolf Fort elders are still there, and that expert obviously didn't take a fancy to their things. So, according to my estimations, it's extremely likely that a martial monarch stage expert made a move and killed the 6 elders of Skywolf Fort before taking away Duan Lingtian. Jian Shisan finished speaking in a single breath. Martial monarch stage expert. As soon as Jian Shisan finished speaking, besides Saber 5 who was prepared since long ago, the pupils of everyone including Feng Wudao couldn't help but constrict, and they had astonished expressions. Feng Wudao was like this because he was shocked by Jian Shisan's deduction. He never imagined that Jian Shisan's thoughts were actually meticulous to such an extent that he was able to determine from the corpses of the 6 Skywolf Fort elders that it was a martial monarch stage expert that killed them. After Ling Tian underwent an unexpected change. That strength is indeed a strength that only a martial monarch stage expert possesses. But I keep having the feeling that exploding out with such a strength is extremely harmful to him and not the slightest benefit. When he thought of Duan Lingtian's appearance when he lost all reason, Feng Wudao's heart was filled with worry. Elder brother Duan was taken away by a martial monarch stage expert? After Feng Qianwu heard what Jian Shisan said, the worry on her face grew even deeper. Then what should we do now? How should we find that martial monarch stage expert and rescue elder brother Duan? Tianwu. Jian Shisan shook his head. I feel that you're too concerned and confused. If Duan Lingtian was really taken away by a martial monarch stage expert, then he ought to be fine. Not only that, he might even obtain a great fortune. Yeah. Su Li deeply agreed with his master's words. If that martial monarch stage expert wants to harm Duan Lingtian, then Duan Lingtian's end would surely be the same as those 6 Skywolf Fort elders. Logically speaking, it's impossible for a martial monarch stage expert to make a move and kill those Skywolf Fort elders for no reason or rhyme. But since he made a move, it's most probably for the sake of rescuing Duan Lingtian. Chapter 839. Needless to say, Su Li's judgment was extremely convincing, and it caused Feng Qianwu's expression to gradually ease up. Yeah, Wu, that kid Lingtian will surely be fine. As the saying goes, one is bound to have good fortune after surviving a great calamity. Feng Wudao said. Yes. Feng Qianwu nodded lightly. Even though her emotions had calmed down, a wisp of worry still appeared on her peerlessly beautiful face. When he saw this scene, Feng Wudao completely dispelled the thought of telling the truth to Feng Qianwu. Otherwise, his daughter would surely be even more worried. Duan Lingtian vanished into thin air, causing Feng Wudao to be unable to find a trace of him. In the end, he could only return to the Blade Sect with Sword 13 and the others. Vice Sect Master Sword, what about the 4 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort? Feng Wudao asked curiously. When he first came to chase after Duan Lingtian, Tamu, and those elders of Skywolf Fort, Sword 13 and Saber 5 were in a horrifying battle with the 4 Vice Fort Masters of Skywolf Fort. Both sides were evenly matched, and even if they fought for an entire day and night, the outcome might not be decided. They were in a deadlock with us for a period of time before leaving. Perhaps they thought that those elders of Skywolf Fort had already succeeded and returned. Sword 13 sneered. They probably never imagined even in their dreams that all the members of Skywolf Fort would be dead. This is called trying to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. They deserved it. Saber 5 cursed as well, and then he sighed. But it's a pity that Tamu, such a good seedling, was killed by the members of Skywolf Fort just like that. Let's go. After a short moment, Sword 13 sighed and led the group to continue on their way, and they headed towards the Blade Sect in the northeast. The veil of night gradually descended. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 4 figures came over from the southwest, and they passed through the sky to quickly arrive at the place Sword 13 and the others had stopped at in the evening. There are a few corpses there. The person in the lead amongst the 4 suddenly stopped moving before diving down. The other 3 followed closely behind him. Elder Ping? Looking at the old man whose neck was twisted and showed no signs of resistance, the old man wearing a green uniform had a gloomy expression. No wonder they didn't come back. They all died here. At this time the other 3 people also dragged 5 corpses over. They were all killed in one strike. From the way their eyes were wide open, it was clear that they were extremely terrified before they died. They must have met an expert that they couldn't match. Judging from the distance between their corpses and the wounds on their bodies, the person who killed them is no ordinary figure. I'm afraid even the fort master doesn't have such strength. Soon, the 3 old men and 1 middle-aged man exchanged glances. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Martial Emperor. Immediately after, the 4 of them exclaimed in unison. These 4 people were the 4 vice-fort masters of Skywolf Fort who had chased after the group from Blade Sect this afternoon and fought against Sword 13 and Saber 5. Meng Li, Ning Qian, Yukong and Feng Wei. After they returned, they originally thought that the 6 elders that chased after Duan Lingtian had already returned, yet never had they imagined that they didn't return at all. It wasn't just that they waited for a long time, yet didn't notice those 6 elders returning. Instantly, the 4 of them decided to come over and see if they could find any clues. The outcome was out of their expectations. The 6 elders of Skywolf Fort were suspected to have been killed by a martial emperor stage expert, and 5 of them were even pursued and killed in a single strike while fleeing for their lives. There are traces of blood there. Suddenly, Feng Wei exclaimed in a low voice, and he seemed to have noticed something. Instantly, the other 3 people went over together. In next to no time, they saw a simple grave nearby, and there was no tombstone on it. Based on the traces of mud on the grave, it was obviously buried not long ago. Bang, bang, bang. Ning Qian took a stride forward and pushed out 3 palms, and his vast origin energy combined with material concept instantly turned the grave upside down. A sturdy corpse was also sent flying by the explosion and fell heavily to the ground. It's that Tamu. Feng Wei recognized the corpse with a single glance, and then he guessed. It's probably buried by the members of the Blade Sect. Could it be that the 6 elders were killed by the members of the Blade Sect? Yukong frowned. No. Meng Li shook his head. The injuries on the corpses of the 6 elders have obviously been there for some time. Moreover, the person that killed them is most probably a martial emperor stage expert. I didn't notice any other traces in the surroundings, nor did I see Duan Lingtian's corpse. Feng Wei searched the surroundings for a while before saying, it's slightly strange. It's very likely that Duan Lingtian was taken away by that martial emperor stage expert. No matter how temperamental a martial emperor stage expert is, he wouldn't casually kill people. Moreover, he killed a few people that were like ants in his eyes. Ning Qian guessed. So I guess that the martial emperor stage expert made a move for the sake of saving Duan Lingtian. Perhaps he took a fancy to Duan Lingtian's natural talent and comprehension ability, or perhaps it was something else. As he finished speaking, Ning Qian's expression sank. The expressions of Meng Li and the others were unsightly as well. The incident today had undoubtedly pushed them to the opposite side of Duan Lingtian. If Duan Lingtian was really following by the side of a martial emperor stage expert, then once the martial emperor stage expert made a move in the future, their Skywolf Fort would undoubtedly suffer misfortune. Don't worry about it for now. All of this is only our own guesses. Perhaps the truth isn't like this? In the end, it was Meng Li who recovered from his shock first and consoled them. Ning Qian and the others nodded. Let's return. Meng Li continued. There's no need to think about the Saint weapon in Duan Lingtian's possession for now. The important matter at hand is to properly prepare to deal with the opening of Emperor Wu's secret treasure half a year from now. According to my knowledge, there are no less than 6 powers that know of the existence of Emperor Wu's secret treasure. When he spoke up to hear, Meng Li looked at Ning Qian. Ning Qian, I heard that the personal disciple you've just taken is a variant, and his innate ability is even more extraordinary. Properly foster him, his innate ability will be the trump card of our Skywolf Fort's young disciples after we enter the Emperor Wu's secret treasure. Yes, senior brother. Ning Qian replied respectfully, and a proud smile appeared on his face when he thought of his personal disciple. The 4 of them arrived hastily and left hastily. As for the corpses of the 6 Skywolf Fort elders, they utterly didn't pay any attention to them and casually tossed them onto the vast plains, allowing them to wait for the arrival of wild beasts and fierce beasts. In the sky above the Darkhan dynasty, swoosh, swoosh, 2 figures that were exceedingly swift flashed through the sky, and it wasn't long before they appeared in the sky above the Darkhan dynasty before stopping. Meanwhile, the owners of the two figures appeared. They were two young girls around the age of 15 or 16. One of the young girls wore yellow clothes and had a pair of eyes that were suffused with a strange sheen, and it was obvious with a single glance that she wasn't someone that could calm down. The other young girl wore green clothes and had a beautiful appearance, and it could be discerned that she would surely be a drop-dead gorgeous beauty when she grew up. Most importantly, the green-clothed young girl seemed to be extremely tranquil as she stood there, and she was like a painting. Compared to the yellow-clothed young girl that was raising her head to watch, they formed two extremes. "Xuanai, this is the Dark Han dynasty you spoke of in the past?" The green-clothed young girl spoke with a voice that was pleasant and gentle like an oriole. "Yes, yes." The yellow-clothed young girl nodded, and then she held the green-clothed young girl's hand before swooping down hastily. "I heard Big Brother Ling Tian say that he seems to be going to participate in the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. I wonder if it has ended." "It has already been a few years, it ought to have ended, right?" Even though the green-clothed young girl was pulled down from the sky by the yellow-clothed young girl, she still maintained a tranquil and ladylike bearing as she lightly parted her jade lips and exhaled. "Wouldn't we know if we ask someone?" The yellow-clothed young girl spoke. "Xuanai, I think we should return earlier. If my father finds out that I ran away from home with you and snuck out, he'll surely be furious." The green-clothed young girl spoke with slight worry. "What are you afraid of?" "I'm here." The yellow-clothed young girl spoke forthrightly. "At that time, if Uncle Mu dares say anything about you, then I'll burn his hair. Speaking of which, Uncle Mu is rather handsome when he doesn't have hair." "Don't." The green-clothed young girl laughed bitterly. "Father's current hair is something he grew for a few years. If you do that again, then he'll probably be depressed again." As far as she was concerned, her father was a formidable figure at any rate, yet he just happened to be meek like a rabbit before her little companion. All right. Aren't you annoying? If I knew earlier, I wouldn't have brought you along." The yellow-clothed young girl spoke with slight impatience. In next to no time, the two young girls entered the Dark Han dynasty's capital, and they went to the restaurant at the first possible moment to call the attendant over. "Attendant, has the martial competition of the 10 dynasties ended?" The yellow-clothed young girl, Han Xuanai, that had parted ways with Duan Ling Tian a few years ago, looked at the attendant and asked, "Young miss, the martial competition of the 10 dynasties wasn't held in our Dark Han dynasty. According to my knowledge, the martial competition of the 10 dynasties was held a year after the dynasty martial competition of our Dark Han dynasty ended, and it ought to have ended a few days ago." The attendant said. "Then do you know where the martial competition of the 10 dynasties is held?" Han Xuanai asked. "Young miss, you must be joking. How would people like us know something like this?" The attendant laughed bitterly. "Young miss, do you want to know where the martial competition of the 10 dynasties is held?" Suddenly, a frivolous voice sounded out, and a young man in embroidered clothes arrived before the table Han Xuanai was at under the escort of two servants. "What? You know?" Han Xuanai sized the young man up from top to bottom for a moment and asked with slight suspicion. "Of course." The young man in embroidered clothes raised his head with an arrogant expression, and then he looked at the nearby attendant and said, "Attendant, tell this young miss who this young master is." Yes. "That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."